Yep, good. Welcome and good evening. Welcome to the City of Carpinteria City Council regular meeting for July 22nd, 2024. And may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Nomura,
Here.
Councilmember Solorzano,
Here.
Vice Mayor Alarcon,
Here.
Councilmember Lee,
Here.
and Mayor Clark.
Here. And the council's reconvening from a closed session held before. Is there a report out from the closed session?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, council members. You're correct, the council was in closed session for a conference with real party negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 in regards to one piece of property, 801 Linden Avenue, Carpinteria, California, and there's no reportable action tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Will you now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First thing we have are introductions, proclamations, and presentations, with the first one being a proclamation proclaiming Tuesday, August 6, 2024 as National Night Out in the City of Carpinteria. And we'll read that out, that proclamation. We'll start with Council Member Supervisor-elect Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch, NATW, sponsors a national community building campaign on Tuesday, August 6, 2024, entitled National Night Out. And
Whereas the National Night Out campaign provides an opportunity for neighbors in Carpinteria to join over 38 million neighbors across 17,000 communities from all 50 states, U.S. territories, and military bases worldwide, and
Whereas National Night Out is an annual community building campaign that promotes strong law enforcement, community partnerships, and neighborhood camaraderie to make our neighborhoods safer, more caring places to live and work, and
Whereas it is essential that all neighbors of Carpinteria come together with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office and work together to build a safer, more caring community.
now therefore the Council of the City of Carpinteria hereby proclaims Tuesday, August 6, 2024 as National Night Out in the City of Carpinteria, invites all neighbors in Carpinteria to join the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office Girls, Inc. of Carpinteria and the National Association of Town Watch in support of the National Night Out event on August 6, 2024 from 5 to 7 p.m. on the 800 block of Linden. And,
I move for approval.
all right,
Second.
we'll first take public comment. Would anybody like to comment on this agenda item? And seeing none, anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no raised hands.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the council, and we'll ask everybody if they approve, vote yes, or no if you don't approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, Brian. Thank you very much. Do we have somebody from the audience here to receive this? Oh, there's somebody.
I gotta press the button.
We'll give it to you.
Great job. Just come out. Everybody come good time with us. Hang out, there's gonna be lots of our department out there. We're gonna bring in some, maybe big jail van this year again, and some other, organizations are joining us. There'll be a tractor out there with Public Works, so hang out with the kids and have some fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is a mayoral recognition awarded to the Coastal View News for receiving 2024 awards from the Association of Community Publishers Awards. And I guess I'll just read the whole thing because it's very short. The City of Carpinteria commends and congratulates Coastal View News for being awarded the following 2024 Best of the Best awards from the Association of Community Publishers. Front page cover in newsprint with advertising, they got second place. Entertaining article run in a publication, they got second place. And general excellence in an overall 15% editorial first place. And the Andrew E. Shapiro Cancer Foundation Cancer Awareness Award for Cancer Awareness Promo. So we'll take any public comment on this recognition. Any members of the comment like to speak on this? Anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no raised hands.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So, is there somebody here to receive this? Get your exercise.
Mayor, council, thank you for the invite. And I thank Michael for getting in touch with me. The big honor about this is all about the community. These awards, we're against 200 national papers throughout the country. Some of them have been in business for generations. We've only been in business 30 years. But this represents how the coverage is done for this community and about this community. So I wanted to share it all with you.
You go up there and get your proclamation with them, and I'll get your photo. I know you love that. I know you love it. I'll put it in that Coastal View News. All right. Okay. Best smiles ever. Nice. Thank you.
You got a backup.
I would.
Thank you guys very much, but it's the community that made the biggest part of it.
All right, the next thing we have is an annual member agency update presentation from Central Coast Community Energy.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, welcome.
I'm online. Hello. I'm trying to figure out how to get my camera on. Sorry about this. Here we are. And I think I'll share my screen. if
Perfect.
That's okay.
You did it.
I got my camera on. Got that much done. I'm not seeing a share. Here we go. Maybe it's here. Am I allowed to share my screen?
You can now.
Still not seeing a control for it. Oh, there it is. Sorry, it's slipped off the bottom here. Okay. Now, I assume you are seeing the presentation. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you and good evening, Mayor, council members, and City of Carpinteria staff. My name is Judy Young. I'm the Senior Account Manager for member agencies with Central Coast Community Energy, and I thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. I will quickly go over who 3CE is because not everyone knows. We are a new kind of government agency. We were formed about 6 years ago when all of these cities and counties came together and said, what if we purchased the electricity to serve our region? Could we do it better? As a local public agency, could we be competitive in price, make greater progress on renewables, and provide investment back into our communities? Well, I'm here tonight to show you how we're doing and what benefits are being offered right here in Carpinteria. As our agency has grown, our investment in communities has increased. Our budget for community energy programs in fiscal year 23-24 is over $16.8 million, which are dollars that are available to the city and to your constituents to help reduce emissions by electrifying vehicles and buildings. To date, on behalf of all of the cities and counties we serve, we've invested $4.5 billion in new renewable energy and energy storage projects, which are making the grid cleaner and helping the environment by reducing fossil fuel emissions. Some of those projects include new technologies that are pushing the envelope toward 100% clean and renewable power, like a compressed air battery storage project, which will be the largest in the world of its kind. We have power purchase agreements in negotiation or in place to cover 80% of our annual load with renewable energy. The challenge is bringing these projects online in a timely manner due to the current backlog in California around permitting and grid connection and delays in transmission upgrades. And yet so much progress is being made. If you haven't heard, the amount of renewable energy on the grid has been exceeding demand in California on nearly a daily basis this spring for as many as 9 hours a day. This is a huge accomplishment, and agencies like 3CE are very much a part of the reason why. Not only are the renewable projects we've contracted with contributing to the solution, but they are also achieving cost savings for our customers. And because of a decision by our policy board last year, they are being evaluated based on their commitment to local community engagement, environmental protection, and workforce support. To reduce emissions in the built environment, our new construction electrification program supports affordable housing projects, including Tabasa Gardens and Sparrow Terrace in Watsonville, providing units for low-income farm worker families transitioning from homelessness. We have plans to support new affordable housing projects totaling 200 new units with completion dates ranging from this year to 2026. Another place we're investing is in agriculture. We provide funding assistance for all electric farm equipment to replace diesel-powered pumps, tractors, and more. We've helped big and small farms in all 5 counties that we serve. So here's a summary of the residential, commercial, and ag rebates available to our customers, including the ever-popular Electrify Your Ride, which offers rebates for new and used vehicles, including battery electric, plug-in hybrid electric, and motorcycles, from $1,000 to $4,000 depending on income. Plus, we can help with EV readiness and residential chargers up to an additional $4,700. Specifically in the city of Carpinteria, 3CE has invested over $150,000 through energy programs, including helping fund 6 level 2 charger ports this past February for city parking lot number 1. City staff have also availed themselves of our Plan Your Fleet program, with plans in the works for a fleet replacement plan and a charging infrastructure plan. I really want to emphasize the offers we have specifically for the city itself. As you know, California has strict mandates for electrifying fleets. We know this is a major undertaking for local governments, and we are here to help. We have funding to help you plan how are you going to make this transition. And after your plan in Plan Your Fleet is complete, we have funding to help pay for the vehicles and the charging infrastructure you'll need to add. I'm pleased that Carpinteria is taking advantage of these fleet electrification programs and I look forward to continued partnership in this area. We also offer funding to help cities adopt REACH codes, which go beyond state requirements to drive lower emissions in buildings and add charging capability. I host a quarterly call for staff of the local governments that make up 3CE, where I go over all of these opportunities. And if any of you would like to learn more about what we offer, I'm happy to set up a meeting. And the last thing I'll add is the applications for all of these programs are on our website, 3cenergy.org. For the generous rebates and incentives available to all of our customers to help purchase electric vehicles, heat pump water heaters, and HVAC systems. So I hope I provided a good picture of what our agency is doing to bring clean energy and community investment to the city of Carpinteria. In closing, on behalf of everyone at 3CE, we thank you for the opportunity to be your local energy provider and to support you and be your partner. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your report. Any questions from the council?
I do. For the cars, is it just used cars or new cars too?
New, used, and lease are all available.
Thank you.
I had a question. So for the services that you mentioned providing specifically for Carpinteria, you had mentioned investing in some of the electrical charging ports. What were some of the ones in those other categories, like the electrify your home and the other, I think there were 3 other ones?
Sure, I can go back to that slide as well. Okay, so we have, I think I went too far. There we go. Electrify Your Home is a program for your community members, your residences. And so that would be heat pump water heater or HVAC, that kind of thing. Electrify Your Ride is also a program for your residents. So $64,000 there that helped purchase vehicles or a motorcycles. Charger Fleet is the program that's aimed to city staff to help City of Carpinteria add charging capabilities and chargers. And then Plan Your Fleet is similar. It's the front end of Charger Fleet. So fleet replacement plan, charging infrastructure plan. So what you're seeing on your screen is 2 that were for City of Carpinteria staff and municipal accounts, and the final 2 are for community.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any, open up the public comment period about this. Any member from the public like to make a comment on this presentation? Seeing none, anybody on Brian?
Mayor, we have no Zoom speakers.
Thanks, Brian. All right, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back for a receive and file kind of motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0, Brian. We're going to now have a temporary adjournment for the purpose of holding the annual meeting of the Carpinteria Public Improvement Corporation. I think.
So, President Clark,
Yes.
if you'd like to call the meeting to order.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And then I show all board members present and counted for. And then all legal noticing and procedural requirements of the meeting have been met.
Okay. Okay, I'm with you now. All right. First order of business is public comment. Anybody have a comment about the Public Improvement Corporation in terms of items that are not on the agenda? In other words, we have an agenda tonight, and if you would like to make a comment on anything not on the agenda, this is the time to do it. Anybody on Zoom, Brian?
We have no Zoom speakers.
All right, thank you. Then we'll close the public comment period and bring it back for approval of minutes from the last regular meeting held July 24th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Brian, do we have any new business?
Oh, President Clark, the item before the receive and file the annual CPIC report. That's the
Oh,
next
okay,
item.
I skipped that, sorry. Let's receive and file the CPIC report.
So President Clark, I'll give a brief presentation tonight.
Okay.
Even though there are currently no certificates of participation or bonds outstanding for the Carpinteria Public Improvement Corporation, it is necessary to continue holding the annual meetings of the Carpinteria Public Improvement Corporation entity in order for it to continue. State law requires that the CPIC consider its annual report at a public meeting of the board. This staff report serves as the annual report, and the board meeting was properly noticed in the local newspaper. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, any questions? All right, and I'll open the public comment period and see if a member of the public would like to comment on the agenda item. Anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no one.
Thank you, Brian. So we will, I guess I lost my place here. It's back here. Okay,
I move to receive and
Yeah.
file the annual report.
thanks.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Brian, and now we're going back to new business, which there is none, and so we will adjourn the meeting at 5:53. And we're going to reconvene the meeting back to the City Council for public information reports and announcements, which may include a presentation about law enforcement.
Yeah, mayor, council, and community members. So there was a sheriff's recap now that's attached to the agenda. Previously, you had just received verbal reports. Now you receive those in print. This is part of the sheriff's, initiative to ensure that that communication is not only available at the time of the meeting or going back and watching the video, but through being able to access that through the agenda. I should also note that they give a version of this to the Coastal View News every week so that it can also be put out to the community that way. Deputy Brian Dickey is here today to simply answer any questions that you might have on the report, and that's all we have for our presentation today.
All right. Welcome again. Any questions for?
I hadn't seen any mention of 4th of July activity on the report. Was there anything I know we had a discussion about it at the last meeting, so I was curious if there was any information around any calls that went in or any activity that was done?
To my knowledge, there's no new information based on, from the last meeting you had. So not that's been relayed to me, no.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your report.
Oh, a question. The St. Joe's Festival, can you give a brief recap of what happened?
Sure. I was there I worked 2 of the nights, so I have firsthand knowledge. Really nothing happened the 2 nights I was there. I was there Friday, Saturday night. Saturday night, there was some problems with some of the couple junior hires. They were causing some problems with one of the carnival workers, and parents were contacted and they were removed. Sunday, which is kind of unusual, we had a fight involving 3 juveniles. 2 of the suspects ran, and we were able to apprehend one of them, and I think we're in the process of IDing the second one. So that was pretty much the highlights of it.
All right, thank you for your report.
All right, thank you.
Now it's time for the city manager's report.
Yes, Mayor, Council, Community, again, the city manager's report is again included as an attachment to the agenda. I don't go over every single item, but happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'll just touch on a few things briefly, and then I have our Community Development Director, Nick Bobroff, to touch on a couple items related to his department. So first, last meeting, we talked about AgeWell moving to an online registration platform. I've received reports now that over 50 people have registered online through their recreation management system, which is called RecDesk. Staff are assisting participants with registration as needed and borrowing laptops from the library to hold in-person registration sessions and setting up individual meetings and even helping over the phone. As a reminder, those who want to participate in AgeWell programming must be registered, and to encourage registration, the AgeWell team is holding weekly drawings with the grand prize at the end of each month. So encourage everyone to go on to our website under AgeWell and register. Related to some city employee updates and recruitments, the city is currently recruiting for an environmental program specialist, limited term. The deadline for first review of application is August 4th, 2024, with a tentative interview date of August 13th. We also had a Management Analyst 1 limited term position that closed on July 17th. And I know we received, I think, over 18 applications last I heard for that position, and there will be a tentative interview date of July 30th. So look forward to coming back to the council at our next meeting with news on that. And then, as always, our aquatics part-time positions are always recruiting. That's our pool and beach lifeguards, and always looking for swim and water polo coaches for anybody that may be interested. That's all I have for recruitments. The council had asked for the legislative position letters to be put up on the website, and that was on your June 10th meeting. And just wanted to let you know, staff created the City Council Legislative Advocacy website, and the address is listed in my report, where recent and future legislation position letters are now available for the public view. And we have Brian to thank for that, Brian Barrett. And one of the things that I want to mention, this is not actually part of the report. This is a hot off the presses news as of today. So the Sheriff's Office is pleased to announce Lieutenant Rich Brittingham as the City of Carpinteria's new Chief of Police Services. This is effective today, July 22nd. Chief Brittingham would have loved to be here today, but he's helping move his daughter into college in Utah, so he will be here next week to meet you all. He's a 21-year veteran of the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office and has more than 27 years of law enforcement experience. He has held a number of assignments during his career, including as a patrol deputy in the South County and as a detective with the Special Investigations Bureau. In 2013, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant, where he supervised patrol teams in the city of Carpinteria and Isla Vista before being transferred to the Criminal Investigations Bureau. On April 6, 2020, he was promoted to lieutenant and was subsequently assigned as the Chief of Police Services for the city of Goleta, where he has served ever since. Lieutenant Brittingham is not only the best fit for the position, and this is coming from Commander Brad Welch. He also brings with him a great set of leadership and managerial skills. Lieutenant Brittingham excels in team environments and has been applauded for his leadership response to the community, forward thinking, and outstanding communication. And again, we look forward to meeting him next week. And I'm going to now turn it over to Nick Bobroff to just touch on a few community development items.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Mayor Clark and council members. As Michael said, I just have a couple of items here that I wanted to update your council on. The first one has to do with live entertainment. So as we've talked about a couple times in the past, code compliance staff has been planning to acquire a digital sound level meter in order to start gathering sound measurements of live entertainment from surrounding areas. to better understand how live entertainment is impacting, or if it's impacting, adjacent residential areas. And so we did just recently obtain that sound level meter, and our code compliance staff is currently getting trained on how to use it. And we are also in the midst of developing a monitoring plan that we can replicate for all the various venues that are hosting live entertainment, so that we can go out and take measurements before and during live entertainment and start to gather some quantifiable data to understand what sort of contribution live entertainment is making to ambient noise levels in residential areas. And the intention is to eventually take these findings and compile them into a staff report that we'll bring back to you later this year as a status update on the live entertainment program, and that might help inform discussions with your council about how we make changes to that program going forward. And then I also just briefly wanted to touch on the implementation of the city's housing element. So our long-range planning staff has been working away on some of the different programs outlined in the adopted housing element, and trying to get us in compliance with the various requirements of our adopted housing element. Some of the key milestones completed so far include submittal and approval of the annual housing element progress report, Planning Commission recommendation for approval of the city's density bonus regulations, and City Council approval upon first reading of the amendments to the city's accessory dwelling unit regulations. All these different ordinances implement specific programs of our housing element. We're also continuing work on the biggest lift, which is the rezones needed to meet our regional housing needs allocation shortfall. You'll recall back in May, we provided an update to your council where we had presented a planned phase approach to bifurcate the rezones into two different buckets, if you will. One that could go on sort of a faster, more streamlined process to meet our immediate obligations under RENA, and then a second bucket that could be looked at on a little bit longer time span, perhaps as part of our larger general plan, coastal land use plan update, that could eventually increase additional housing capacity down the road, but would be on a slower, timeline, not as urgent. And so we've been working on that first bucket of rezoned sites at the staff level, and we're hoping to be in a position later this summer or fall to bring that item to the Planning Commission and get their feedback and ultimately a recommendation on them before we would bring that item then to your council later this year. And that concludes my updates, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, in terms of the noise monitoring, are there any standards, objective standards that the city can use once they gather more of that information from the new equipment you mentioned?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Slarceno. So recall in the existing live entertainment ordinance, we do not have any objective standards that we enforce right now. Instead, it's really currently regulated on a curfew type basis, and we also have some limitations on how many cumulative hours of live music a licensed venue can have during the week. That being said, there are some guidelines in the noise element of the city's general plan that give kind of a acceptable and conditionally acceptable and normally unacceptable range of noise levels for different types of land use categories. And so we may be able to measure or compare some of those captured noise measurements against that land use compatibility table to kind of get a sense of where these captured noise levels fall within that matrix, to get an understanding of, are we way out of range, are we within range, are we somewhere in between? But that's about all we have currently in terms of an objective standard to measure captured noise levels against.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we're going to go to public comment on matters not on the city council agenda tonight, but otherwise within the purview of the city council. And the first, I have some speaker slips if you want.
Mayor Clark?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you through the council. If we want to take public comment on the city manager's report
Oh,
first.
yes, I'm sorry.
Then we can move
should
to
do
general
that.
public
Let's
comment.
go
Great, thank
back.
you.
We're going to reopen the city manager's report and see if there's any public comment on that. Anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no raised hands.
Thank you. Now, are we also supposed to take a vote on receiving and filing the city manager's report?
Mayor Clark, nope, that's not necessary. Just wanted to make sure we had public comment on that item, and now we're ready to move forward to public comment on items not on the agenda.
Okay, so
Thanks.
as I was saying, thank you. As I was saying, we have 2 speaker slips for this comment period, and maybe some more coming.
It's more general.
Okay. Okay, so the first slip is from Eileen Markison. Welcome, Eileen.
Hello. Tonight I'm really here as a public service announcement. The last time I was here, I made my appearance, I spoke my truth to power. That's what this period during the city council meetings is for. I come before you. I know that I'm going to be videotaped for the city website. I'm comfortable with that. One city-funded videographer, Larry Nimmer, decided to pull footage from the last city council meeting that featured me. And it was edited. And I have no problem standing before you and telling my story and telling my truth. But I do have a problem with my appearance being edited by one videographer that has received funding from the city of Carpinteria. And I hope that that act, that stunt really, that doesn't have a chilling effect on other Carpinterians, other residents coming before you and speaking their truth to power. It's troubling, and I hope that residents feel comfortable that they're not going to see their footage edited on a YouTube channel. So, Carpinterians, come forward, speak your truth. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next slip is from Stephen Markinson. Markison. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to give you an update on our noisy neighbors, if you will. The headline in the CVN, and it's odd that the CVN received their award, but the headline in the letters department is, "We simply do not wish to be forced to hear loud pounding drums and loud guitar, bass, music from this inconsiderate neighborhood establishment. We don't want to call the sheriff, but at present, this is our only option when we are disturbed every weekend evening." It's not from me. You can look it up in the CVN, but I just want to say that we are constantly disturbed. It doesn't get better. You guys removed all means of controlling this. A curfew base doesn't work when you're disturbed for 3 hours, Friday night, Saturday night, holidays. It just keeps going. And then we're told to involve the sheriff, involve law enforcement. And law enforcement doesn't really want to do this. They want us to involve the city. So here we are, we're sort of stranded on this island with no resolve, no regulation. You got to do something about this, because I've been at this for a year. I mean, isn't a year long enough to realize that I think we do have a problem? Secondly, I don't think, and Eileen spoke to it, but I don't think the public is aware of how to respond to a noise complaint. There's no public service announcement published anywhere. If you're in the campground, you have a web to, can you go to a website? Campers don't know this. They're disturbed. A lot of neighbors are afraid of exactly what happened to Eileen. They'll be fingered. Obviously, I think we're all aware of how the Markisons have been identified as being lone wolves and out there, but we're not lone wolves. There are many, many people that suffer this. So I didn't prepare anything tonight. I'm flying off the cuff, but I just wanted to report that we're still going through it. Wish we weren't. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Songer. Welcome, Betty.
Hi. Take my mask off. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I've lived in Carpinteria on Cayenne Pacific since 1957. I'm one of the lucky ones who bought their house when the homes were affordable. And Carpinteria Park was a working class, segregated, not integrated neighborhood. Today, I'm heartsick about what is happening to my neighborhood and to my town. In fact, I really don't feel like I belong on my street anymore. Within a few blocks of my house, there are 6 second houses, and the second house next to me has been under horrendous construction for over 6 years. Money being no object, I believe. I believe that over 30% of our housing stock is in second housing. Some of my friends have left Carpinteria because there's no affordable rentals and in fact, no rentals at all. I have attended the Architectural Review Board and the Planning Commission meetings and have seen a development on Carpinteria approved when it only has 3 affordable units and does not conform to our building codes. Lagunitas is another proposed development that has no affordable units planned and does not conform with our building codes. Sacramento has mandated that Carpinteria build over 900 units, some on rezoned agricultural land. It is doubtful that we will see many affordable units that are truly affordable and meet the needs of our own people who have worked and contributed to Carpinteria for many, many years. How can we get more affordable housing? We can impose a fee on all second homes where the owners are hardly ever there. This is a worldwide problem, and countries and cities and states are enacting this fee. Arizona, San Francisco, I can't name all of them, but it's happening every. Number 2, we can begin to phase out short-term rentals and close down supposed unlicensed ones. This is also being done in many parts of the world. Housing cannot be just for the wealthy. We can become a charter city and give back and gain back some control over our destiny. We in the council can join with our neighborhood voices and help them succeed in enacting legislature that will give us back control of our city. We could enact rent control. This is all we have, and you guys are all we have. You're the council at a very crucial, important time and have the opportunity to take some meaningful actions. I hope you'll consider some of them that I have given you. And please, please, take some actions. It's never too late. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Betty. I appreciate it. Next slip is from Amrita Psalm. Welcome, Amrita.
Thank you. As of today, July 22nd, there has not been an update on the city's website for the Surfliner Inn since October 13th, 2023. At that time, an application status letter was sent to the developer, giving them 90 days to complete their application. Not a word to the public or even the mayor or city manager what we learned at a quickly called public facilities meeting chaired by Wade Namora and another council member, our mayor, last Monday, July 15th. All those residents who attended the committee meeting on short notice were promised an update on the Surfliner Inn by our city manager. His report on tonight's agenda lists no updates on development applications. Why did the assistant manager call a meeting to discuss solar panels on a development application that is not complete? There were no diagrams, drawings, or height dimensions on the proposed solar panels provided to the committee, and also no written report. A hard-to-read PowerPoint was presented. There were no city planners at the meeting, and the developers were not in attendance either, unless you count the city's staff as their representatives. Is the Surfliner going through the regular planning process? That is, the ARB, Planning Commission, City Council, and Coastal Commission, as promised after the last election, or just working with staff privately? Fortunately, Chair Nomura told staff after receiving public comment that the project should go through the regular planning process, and the information provided was not sufficient to give input, and the community needs updates on the project. The public is waiting for information on the status of the Surfliner Inn, including regular updates on the city's website, their newsletter, and other forms of social media. Thank you. I hope it's addressed.
Thank you for your comments. Rogelio Delgado. Welcome, Rogelio.
Thank you, Rogelio Delgado, Carpinteria resident. Now I would like to talk about common people. Let's say Juan, Mary. No credentials, no PhD, no masters, no bachelors, but they know a lot about our government. But what chance do they have of being right there, a city? The money for the statement, 600, 700, probably small donations, not enough to go against well-established politicians. Juan and Mary, I know them, but they will not run. They will not. Because they will get nowhere. So this is my question. What are the chances of common people, knowledgeable people, clean civil record of being right there. You know me. A lot of people know me. I have the credentials. I can put up a good fight, a pretty good campaign, but I'm holding on. Holding on. Like, wait and see. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm talking about the common people, not me. Juan, remember, Mary, they're out there. But they see no chance. Not now, not in 2 years. How can I, what can the city do to have someone right there, like Juan or Mary? Thank you.
Thank you, Rogelio. Annie Sly.
Good evening.
Welcome, Annie.
I consider myself a watchdog, keeping an eye on unwanted development that is not in keeping with the general plan and the community's desire to keep Carp the small, charming beach town that it is, and other issues affecting Carpinteria. I feel certain that a majority of Carpinterians are worried about the future of our city. They may not show up to meetings or write letters to the Coastal View News, but they are concerned. I know this because after having a business in town for 10 years and driving for help, I am viewed by some as a person in the know. People often ask me to tell them what is going on. They want to be informed, as I do. The housing element is very important. The state is trying to take away local control. In their effort to solve the housing shortage, they have passed laws that threaten the character of Carp. We must do everything possible to protect local control. Our regulations regarding height, density, and parking requirements are being pushed aside in favor of state law that allow the kind of development that no one wants here. When you make decisions as council members, please keep in mind what is most important to your constituents. They want to keep Carp, to maintain the character and charm of our wonderful city. I'd like to mention one more thing. I don't know if this is the best direction to go, but it's worth considering. Charter cities have extra independence from state law. Maybe Carpinteria should adopt a charter. To steal a theme from Girls, Inc., please be strong, smart, and bold. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's my last speaker slip. Anybody else from the public like to make a comment? All right, anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no raised hands.
All right, thank you. So ask staff if they have any comments about any of the commenters.
Yeah, Mayor, is a specific question you would like us to address?
Well, I was just wondering if you thought there was a specific one you thought you should address.
Okay. I've invited up Nick Bobroff to address the question about the development related to the Surfliner.
That's a good place to start.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Yes, I can speak a little bit to the Surfliner Inn status. The application remains incomplete as of last week, and our intention had been to work with city staff to get an update on the city website once the application is complete. We didn't want to put something out there in terms of, you know, what the current project is when it's still in flux and was still changing and evolving throughout the completeness review stage. And part of that had to do with this proposal that the developers were considering for adding in the solar carport. And so that was one of the main elements of the application that was still incomplete. And again, we didn't want to put information out there until we knew what the project description was and it was nailed down and either the solar carport was in or it's out. This gets a little bit in the weeds because of, you know, the fact that the city has the LDDA, the lease disposition, I don't remember what the development disposition agreement with the developer. So the city's kind of acting both as landlord and as, land use review authority. My shop's involved on the land use review side of things and not the lease side of things, and that's why we weren't at the meeting about the public facilities committee last week, because that's really kind of more in the realm of the city acting as landlord to consider whether they wanted to amend the LDDA to allow for the solar carport component. So this gets very complicated, but the upshot is that once the application is deemed complete here in the near future, we will get a copy of the application materials up on the city website, and then the standard review process will commence from there with Architecture Review Board targeted for sometime late summer or early fall once we get out of the peak summer season.
And I'll, Mayor Clark, through the council, I apologize, Nick, I'm going to correct you on just one small item. It was not, the developer wasn't seeking an amendment to the LDDA, but they were they were proposing a change to the offsite improvements. And so there's a couple of ways that the city can review and consider those those proposed offsite improvements following when the proposed development came to your council, back several years ago now. And one of those options is to present it to the city's facilities committee. And so that's the direction that the city decided to take, that staff decided to take, and that's why the facilities committee did review these proposed changes to the offsite improvements.
That sounds all good, but what's off-site about it?
Thank you,
It's
Mayor.
right there.
Mayor Clark, through the council. That's a great question. I'm using a term of art here that is defined in the LDDA. So I agree it's not particularly user-friendly, but the LDDA defines all of the different parcels and all of the different proposed developments in different ways. So there are 3 parcels that are considered there. One is the parking lot 3, the parking lot parcel, it's called. And then across the train tracks is the vacant, I think it's called the vacant parcel or the vacant lot. The improvements that are not the proposed development of the Surfliner in itself are called off-site improvements. So the site, the defined term, the site, I believe I don't have the LDDA open in front of me, but the site is really just considered the proposed hotel development. So anything not on the proposed hotel development itself is considered an off-site development. And so that includes the proposed replacement parking lot as well as the reconfigured parking spaces in the current parking lot 3.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Real quick one, Mayor.
Yeah.
One concern that was brought up had to do with potential misuse of video materials by Larry Nimmer. I would like to have that looked into to see if that, in fact, is something that is occurring.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
And then, Mayor Clark, I can speak just very briefly on another question that was raised about the city looking into transitioning into a charter city. And so at your council's direction, we're working with staff to bring that item back, and I believe it's currently slotted for the meeting at the end of August.
That's great, thank you. All right, we're going to go on to the consent calendar.
All right. I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held July 8th, 2024. Receive and file the expenditures for the period beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending July 12th, 2024. Receive and file the reports of contracts executed by the city manager for the period of June 18, 2024 through July 15, 2024, and receive and file the monthly treasurer's report on compliance with statement of safekeeping and investment of public funds for June 2024, and receive and file the quarterly review of the Pension Stabilization Trust, and adopt ordinance number 784, second reading amending Chapter 2.08, City Managers of Title II, and Chapter 3.32, Purchasing Systems of Title III, Revenue and Finance.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion second. Before there's any discussion, we'll open up the public comment period and see if any member of the public would like to comment on the consent calendar items that were just read, which we're now going to approve. Anybody on Zoom, Brian?
Mayor, we have no raised hands.
All right, we'll close the public comment period, and we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please, Brian?
Let's see. Councilmember Nomura?
Aye.
Councilmember Solorzano?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alarcon?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
And Mayor Clark.
Aye. All right, so we're going to item number 11 on our agenda, which is the designation of voting delegate and alternate for the League of California Cities Annual Conference.
So Mayor, I'll take this report. The League of California Cities Annual Conference is set for October 16th through 18th in Long Beach. An important part of the conference is the annual general session, where legal membership will consider and take action on resolutions that establish league policy. To vote at the League's annual general session, the City Council must designate a voting delegate. In the event that the designated voting delegate is unable to serve in that capacity, the City Council may appoint up to 2 alternates. Councilmember Nomura, the city's representative to the Channel Counties Division of the League. Vice Mayor Alarcon, the city's alternate representative to the Channel Counties Division of the League. And Councilmember Solorzano plan to attend the conference this year. Tonight's recommendation is to designate Councilmember Nomura as the city's voting delegate and designate Vice Mayor Alarcon as the city's alternate voting delegate for the League of California Cities 2024 Annual Conference in Long Beach. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? All right, we'll open the public comment period and see if anybody has any opinions about the voting delegates to the League of Cities. And seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
I move to designate Councilmember Nomura as the city's voting delegate and designate Vice Mayor Alarcon as the city's alternate voting delegate for the League of California Cities 2024 Annual Conference and Expo in Long Beach.
And I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0, Brian. Now we're going to item number 12, which is a code compliance quarterly report for the second quarter of 2024.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, council members, and the public. Tonight, I am presenting the Code Compliance Quarterly Report. This will cover April through June. Code Compliance Division. Code Compliance Division enforces local and state laws for the city of Carpinteria. Staffing includes code supervisor and a code compliance officer serving the city 7 days a week. Code compliance staff works in cooperation with all city departments, the sheriff's office, and other agencies to resolve code-related issues and calls for service in an efficient and timely manner. We are posting up the service request portal for us for the public. This is the best way to reach code compliance and have a service request, as well as direct contact with myself and Henry. This slide shows 161 total cases opened for quarter two. We have, of course, parking and animal violations leading the way. We do have bicycles on sidewalks and graffiti down this quarter, but still at some high numbers. Slide 4 here shows customer satisfaction results for quarter 2. These surveys are presented to the public after a service request is completed, and it gives the public a way to give staff feedback and gives us a chance to see where we may improve. So for an example, time of response to a call, employee courtesy, effectiveness, and expectations met from the public. We also do see the comments that are left when these service requests are presented to us.
If I may, I have a quick question
Oh,
about the
sure.
the surveys. Does everyone receive a survey, regardless if it is through the portal or if they call you?
To get these surveys is only through our portal system.
Okay.
Of course, the public can come in and leave a written,
Request.
request, or us basically give us feedback anytime, either verbally or by email or through a written request.
Thank you.
So how these requests come in through our online city website is at 89% of those are still coming through the city's website. 52% are coming through the downloaded app, which is growing in numbers. So the public are being made aware of the app and using the app, and which is a great, great way to have that in the field and in real time can submit a request, including pictures. So I encourage the public to download that app. And when they come in through the app, these are typically how these requests come in, for at least through the code section. And you can see abandoned vehicles lead the way by quite a bit, followed by some noise complaints. And then this other is going to be broken down once we figure out exactly what those requests are, and then we can create categories for those, and then we'll be able to break down those stats a little better. Slide 5 here is code cases. These are independent of parking and animal-related sections of our jobs. As you see, we had 8 zoning cases opened this quarter with and 6 sign regulations. As I mentioned earlier, bicycles, with the summer upon us and tourist season here, we get a lot of bicycles down in the downtown T, so we do try to make contact there, as well as some graffiti. We had 4 public nuisance cases created. Those were vehicle abatement on private property. These are inoperable or unregistered vehicles. And we had some weed abatement, 2 properties for weed abatement. I did want to mention that we also received 14 noise complaints from 2 separate parties and 1 anonymous source concerning the live entertainment. And then I believe Nick expanded on what we were going to do with the upcoming monitoring of the venues. So we can expand on that more if you have further questions. This shows just some of the graffiti throughout the city that code compliance abated. And you can see by the pictures, a lot of it is gang-related, and we do pass that on to the sheriffs. This one happened to be private property, so the property owner abated the graffiti. Homeless contacts were actually down this quarter as well as this year over last year. So this slide here shows in 2022-23 that we had around 135 contacts regarding homeless, and roughly around 95 plus hours totaling. So one good thing about our new program is that it can keep track of our hours and how much time we spent in one area. And then so this year we were down to 54 cases and just a little over 35 hours. Parking citations. This is all the citations that were issued throughout the quarter. And we show that no parking areas, these are red zones, street sweeping, no parking areas lead the way, and we had 71 72-hour parking requests. Now these may just be warnings issued, ticketed, or towed vehicles included. And then, of course, with summer, our beach area, our 2-hour parking area gets maxed out. And we are lucky to be one of the last beach towns that do not charge for parking. So we do try to get down there and enforce our 2-hour parking during the busy season. And a map showing the 72-hour violations or warnings issued. In our animal control, we are still out in the public and open, the parks and public open spaces, trying to do outreach for off-leash. And so, although it's down this quarter, it's still quite high. So during those contacts, we also will check for license status to see if the animal is licensed throughout the city. And as you can see, most of them are, but we did have 3. Strays and adoptions, so these are animals either found and returned to owners or adopted back out. And then we had 5 bite reports for this quarter. I should have put this here, but just maybe some of interest, 2 of those are actually occurred in our off-leash park. So we are keeping track of that so that when the off-leash park comes up for review, we'll have some stats for you. 85 licenses, re-licenses for the quarter. And those show where the animal violations or contacts were made throughout the city. And that concludes my presentation. I'll take questions.
All right, thank you for your report. Any questions?
Yeah, in terms of the graffiti, is that a trend, the gang-related graffiti examples that you mentioned, is that trending upwards or down, or is it staying pretty stable?
Yeah, I believe it's pretty stable. We see an uptick in summertime, obviously, and then during school, it's more of the tagging. Just the kids that are doing the monikers.
Mm-hmm. So it's not predominantly gang-related graffiti. It kind of varies according to the time of year and location and everything?
That's correct, yes.
That's helpful. And then in terms of the issue of bicycles on the sidewalks, I know that would be a really hard issue to enforce in some way because people are moving really quickly, but I know that's something that we get outreach from residents about, are the e-bikes or just the bikes that are either on sidewalks or in the salt marsh or places where they shouldn't be. Are there any ideas of how we can maybe try to address that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to address. Last quarter it was actually businesses that reached out as spring break was upon us. We know we get a lot more tourists in town, and we'll see a lot more activities in the downtown T. We get a lot of families and individuals on bikes. And then that continued into the summer. Although it did go down, we were still pretty active out there. And when it's active, we just try to make a presence so that we can try to curb some of the education, basically. But to really eliminate bicycling on the sidewalk, that's we do have to spend a lot of time and effort in one location.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Nope.
Yes, I have one more question. Thank you for your report. How are we defining homelessness based off of this report? I know we have a report on behalf of the county, and they talk about like sheltered and unsheltered homeless individuals. What is our criteria, or what are we? If you can just give me a better sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's probably a definition, and I believe in our next presentation we'll get into that and maybe answer that better for you with Kimberly, who heads the homeless outreach management for the county.
Okay.
But there is definitely a definition and I believe a time frame that they consider you homeless.
Okay. And so could you describe what would be your like a typical contact?
Yeah, so ours are either through discovering an encampment and this is not an encampment like you would see maybe down in Los Angeles areas, but for here, it would be a single person or a couple setting up tents, or we just would make contact for other violations, and then we would, through that contact, discover that they were experiencing homelessness, and that way we will address the enforcement side, but we will also then offer services on top of that, and then invite them to our weekly lunch program and services.
Thank you.
All right. We'll open up the public comment period, and we have a speaker slip on this from Rogelio Delgado. Welcome, Rogelio.
Rogelio Delgado, Carpinteria resident, Baylor Avenue. What is the protocol for the parking code compliance on that street? Because this is where I live there. I know every car that's there. 40, 50, 60, 80 cars. I know the owners, and they have moved away last year. They live in Santa Barbara. They live in Ventura. You can see that. They're abandoned there. I know the owners. That's why I'm telling you. They moved away a long, long time ago. They even park on red. I've seen you. David, go by. What's the protocol? Do I need to call the city? Or what's the protocol? Isn't your job to check? Oh, I've seen that car for months. Maybe there's something wrong. And believe me, this is not just me speaking up. So I know the owners of that street very well. And they're frustrated with the government, with the parking enforcement. Because parking there, actually right now, try to park on that street. Might take you an hour to find a parking space because there's just 10, 15 cars that, I mean, there for months and months. That's the problem at Baylor Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Up. Good time. Welcome, Eileen.
Hello. Quickly, you have a couple households that have filed code compliance complaints with respect to noise. One of those households is ours. You've got the address. You've got the equipment. Our home, our patio is available as a monitoring location. And I know of other people who might make their outdoor space available as well. So you can make contact with our household, and we would be happy to accommodate. And that's it.
Thank you for your comments. So, I mean, I guess in the answer to maybe some of these things, like the abandoned vehicles, would somebody use the app and make a complaint that way?
Yes, that's the most effective way, is to you gotta remember that we, being a small city and with limited resources, don't have a full-time parking person out there. We share the duties between animal control, parking, and code. And so we do rely on the public to send in those requests. And as you can see, it's our most popular request by far, is the abandoned vehicle. So we're happy to address the situation, and we'll go out there and monitor the vehicles that come in and take the necessary steps to either remedy it or educate the car owners on the codes.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the council.
Mayor, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. We also have 2 Zoom speakers.
Oh, I'm sorry. One time I forgot to ask.
So the first one is David Allen. David, go ahead.
Welcome, David.
It's not David, it's Susan. I don't know why that always comes up that way. I just want to give a shout out to the dynamic duo code compliance officers. They, the 2 of them, are the face that most of the community sees, along with Public Works. They are out there. Most city employees are in their offices doing their job, but these guys are out there. Those are the ones we have the most contact with. I do want to express my frustration, and as I have before, that once upon a time there were 3 of them. There probably needs to be 4, but we're still down to 2 who work a normal workday 7 days a week. And if you start looking at how that is covered, they do an incredible job. I just want to thank them and hope you will consider adding staff. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Susan.
All right, the next one is Lorraine McIntyre. Lorraine, go ahead.
Are you there, Lorraine?
Lorraine, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Sure, thank you.
Gosh, another call was coming in at the very moment that the unmute button came on. I would like to make a comment regarding the code enforcement comment about the dog bites in the dog park. I wondered if, were those the ones that we had reported? Because we, as part of CDOG, monitor and submit violations and reports to Parks and Recreation. So I just want a clarification if those dog incidences were new ones that we didn't know about, or were they the ones that we had funneled through Parks and Recreation? And I don't know if that can be answered.
Yes, and we appreciate CDOG and their promptness to report that. So just to give out information, it is required by law that every dog bite be reported to the jurisdiction that the bite occurred in. So we appreciate those reports.
So those are the two, or two of the three incidents that you logged. Is that correct?
Right, two of the three, correct.
She's
Two of
referring to,
them
yeah.
came through.
Okay, perfect.
Dog
Thank you,
bite.
Lorraine.
Thank you.
All right, we'll bring it back to the council. For a motion to receive and file.
I move to receive and file the second quarter code compliance quarterly report.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0, Brian. Okay, we're on to item number 13, which is the 2024 annual report on efforts to assist people experiencing homelessness in Carpinteria and address issues related to homelessness in the community.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. This staff report is the 2024 annual report on the efforts to assist people experiencing homelessness in Carpinteria and to address issues related to homelessness in the community. I will give a little background and some other information. And then we have a guest tonight from the county, Kimberly Alberts, and she is the Homeless Assistance Program Manager. And she'll give a brief presentation, and then we'll both be available for comments or questions. Oh, sure, yeah. So a little background, local response to the ongoing national crisis of homeless continues to be a service area priority throughout Santa Barbara County, including Carpinteria. Each year, the city and county staff provides the council with an annual report summarizing local efforts to respond to homelessness-related manners within Carpinteria, as well as a broader effort to the larger South Coast region. As part of this annual report, staff shares the findings from the most recent annual point-in-time count completed in January of each year. The city provides services to people experiencing homeless via collaboration with the County of Santa Barbara, non-government organizations providing homeless services in the region, and local community-based volunteers and organizations. Service request statistics. So service requests related to homeless manners are logged and tracked by city staff. That is now done through GoGov. Local law enforcement and fire personnel as well will keep track. This information is used to monitor trends over time and to help inform allocation of resources and services. Local data and issues concerning people experiencing homeless in Carpinteria are reviewed and discussed at weekly and monthly meetings with the city, county, and service agencies. Acute and chronic issues are also discussed along with the strategies for providing assistance to those resistant individuals. Preliminary data for the code compliance and sheriff department indicate that code compliance officers logged 53 homeless-related contacts. I think it was 54, really. And law enforcement logged 538 calls for service reported as homeless-related manners during the 2023-24 fiscal year. Of those service calls, 257 police reports were filed and 195 arrests were made. Public Works staff reports having cleaned up and removed 32 different encampments in the compliance with the city's abandoned personal property policies during the past fiscal years. year. Tens of millions of dollars have been spent to address homelessness in Santa Barbara County in the last several years. Over the past year, an estimated 17 people experienced homeless in Carpinteria receive assistance, including 5 that moved on to permanent destinations. And although 17 seems low, that is people that were entered into the MH, and I'll probably not say this, MIHS system. Yeah, thank you. and logged as people receiving help. Annual point in time count. This year's point in time count was conducted on January 24, 2024 in by the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria County Continuum of Care. The preliminary findings were released in April of this year. This year, 2,119 persons were counted countywide. That shows a 12% increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness compared to the 2023 count. The count included 1,332 persons experiencing unsheltered homelessness and 787 persons living in emergency shelters or transitional housing. In Carpinteria, 42 persons experienced homelessness were counted, and that is up from 23 persons in 2023. Some key insights from the point in time count. The number of people reporting homelessness for the first time went up. The number of people counted in vehicles went up. The number of families with minor children went up. Contributing factors to those numbers of families, people living in vehicles, and people experience homeless for the first time include lack of affordable housing, stagnation in wages versus rental costs, and the end of COVID inspired eviction moratoriums and emergency housing vouchers and rental assistance. Our lunch program and Carp Connect. Each week, a group of community volunteers and local business and entities work together to provide weekly lunches and provisions to individuals experiencing homelessness in Carpinteria. Currently, the lunch program offers services from county drug and alcohol specialists, county behavioral wellness, Good Samaritan, CityNet, New Beginnings, among others. According to the count for the lunch program, so the volunteers keep track of their guests, and over 1,100 guests were served during the 23-24 fiscal year. Running concurrently with the weekly lunch program, this site also serves as Carp Connect, which is one of several coordinated entry system points throughout Santa Barbara County. Both the lunch program and Carp Connect operate from the Veterans Hall at 941 Walnut Avenue on Wednesdays from roughly 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Safe parking program. New Beginnings entered into an agreement when the City Council in October of 2022 adopted resolution number 6171, establishing administrative procedures for a 2-year safe parking pilot program. According to monthly monitoring reports submitted by submitted to the city by New Beginnings, all 6 spaces were consistently occupied, and a New Beginning maintains a waiting list of approximately 19 individuals waiting for the opportunity to get into the program. Year-to-date, total show 19 individuals, 13 vehicles have been assisted in the safe parking pilot program this year, with 6 of those individuals having been transitioned into permanent housing, which is pretty impressive. Some regional efforts. Santa Barbara County has been awarded approximately $8 million to tackle pressing issue of persons living in vehicles from the Encampment Resolution Fund, Round 3. Dignity Moves opened up a new interim supportive housing in Santa Barbara. Dignity Moves continues to look for additional sites to expand their inventory of units, and the city staff have met with representatives from Dignity Moves on several occasions now to discuss and explore where Tiny Home Village could locate in the Carpinteria area and serve to help transition local individuals to experience homelessness into permanent housing. Policy consistency. The city collaborative approach to providing homeless services, as described above, is intended to be a cost-effective and efficient means for the city to address important community service need. People living on the streets of Carpinteria require services that result in increased public costs for law enforcement, emergency, medical, and hospital services, and present health and safety issues for individuals experiencing homelessness as well as general public. The response model being followed by the city through its partnerships with Good Samaritan and other partnering agencies is intended to reduce the reliance on first responders, which often results in arrest, transportation, jail and/or hospitalization, and to prioritize housing and related supportive services that can lead people that have been chronically homeless to reunite with family or get permanent housing. Legal and risk management considerations. In California, a growing body of case law is influencing how cities and counties manage competing interests in public health and safety and provide assistance to people living on the streets in other public places, often with severe mental and physical issues. The city's attorney office monitors these cases and advises staff accordingly. And that concludes my portion, and I will invite Kimberly Alberts up to give her presentation.
There's actually 3 of us.
Oh, hey, oh, nice. Oh, good surprise.
So.
Test it out.
Brought the whole team. How would I go back? Can I move forward? Absolutely.
Good? All right. Good evening, Mayor Clark, honorable members of the City Council, City Manager Ramirez, and staff, and community members. I am Joe Dzvonek, the Deputy Director for Santa Barbara County's Housing and Community Development Division. I'm joined here today by Kimberly Albers, who serves as the Homeless Assistance Program Manager for the county, and Lucille Boss, who is serving as the Interim Housing Programs Manager for the county. We truly appreciate your council inviting us here today. Today, we're going to provide an update on the recent efforts to address homelessness in Santa Barbara County, with special emphasis on the city of Carpinteria. Next slide. So to remind everyone of the basics regarding the county's Community Action Plan to address homelessness, it was approved by the County Board of Supervisors and this council in February of 2021. It is comprised of what we call 5 strategies that are summarized here. Each one of these strategies is really a focused effort geared toward one specific aspect of homelessness that, if successful, results in a reduction of homelessness and/or its impacts to our community. These efforts include, number 1, increasing the availability of affordable and interim housing. Number 2, addressing the financial, physical, mental, and medical needs of our unhoused population. 3, helping those who are currently unhoused obtain and maintain their housing, as well as helping those who are heading down the road to homelessness maintain the housing they have. Number 4, working to improve the capacity and effectiveness of our service provider partners. Excuse me. And finally, 5, improving communications and data gathered within and between our communities to create a shared understanding of homelessness as it exists in our community and drive a unified effort to address it. Next slide. To provide some details, this slide presents a summary of the Community Action Plan efforts in progress by category occurring between February of 2021 and February of this year. A few specific successes I'd like to highlight. We've worked hard to significantly increase the availability of federal, state, and local funding for homelessness over the past 3 years. And although a significant percentage of this was one-time funding, it led to 496 new units of permanent housing. Also, jurisdictions and partners continue to share our interactive homelessness data dashboard, which allows the broader public to engage and learn more about who is being served and what needs are being met. In the past year alone, over 1,000 people began receiving Medi-Cal billable services, up from the 913 you see on the slide when we originally made it here a few weeks ago. And one of the more impressive stats on the slide, since February 2021, our region has collectively ended homelessness for over 3,640 people. Now, I've talked a lot about numbers here, but it's perhaps more important to share the humanity behind these numbers. I would like to introduce everybody here on the bottom left to Francisco. He's one of those 3,646 community members who have achieved permanent housing in the past 3 years. Francisco was one of the first residents at the Dignity Move Santa Barbara Street Village. He was referred there by County Behavioral Wellness, in part because he had a pacemaker and needed a place to recover and stabilize from significant heart issues. At the same time, because he had been in and out of incarceration while growing up on the east side of the city of Santa Barbara, he also had serious legal issues that were being addressed in the court system. But because he successfully engaged in treatment, was a model resident, and had multiple shelter staff testify under oath on his behalf, the judge expunged all of his charges, and Francisco did not have to serve any more time in prison. Today, he is successfully housed in our community. He says that finally having a place to live of his own after so many years on the streets feels like heaven sent. So let's jump into some of the key trends that we saw in 2023 with respect to how homelessness looks in our countywide community. The good news first, 1,400 people have transitioned out of homelessness and into permanent housing in 2023. This represents the highest level of success in any 1 year for this critical metric since being measured for our county, and this is the third year in a row of increasing success. This one metric is really the thermometer of whether or not a homeless strategy is working, because it's not about just providing housing. It's about service providers knowing how to build trust, navigate systems, and being relentless. But in order for those service providers to be successful, our community has to have what I call a continuum of shelter available to support the plan. Most of us are aware that to improve the chances of getting someone who is unhoused to the point of permanent housing, more often than not requires moving them through a series of shelters. Sometimes their journey back to housing begins in an emergency shelter, sometimes warming centers, sometimes medical facilities, or even justice pathways. But having this continuum of shelter available and staffed by expert service providers is what has helped us transition 1,400 people out of homelessness just last year. And looking back at the slide here, at that green tab on the far right, it shows us that things are about to get better. La Posada and Hope Village, which both opened this spring, both represent a huge widening in the gateway to exiting homelessness in Santa Barbara County. So let me say a few words now about the troubling trends on the slide. One, there is a consistent inflow of people accessing services for the first time, which is good and bad, and therefore I colored it amber. It's good because we are fortunate to have an ever-increasing number of pathways available for people to seek and find services, but it's bad because it also means more people are approaching or entering homelessness for the first time. Another troubling trend we see here is an increase in the number of families requiring shelter and housing services. And the other troubling trend up here we saw was a significant growth in the category of vehicular homelessness across the county, with a disproportionate growth of those living in vehicles being either seniors or families. As some of you may be aware, I think as Dave just said here, staff from Santa Barbara County and the cities joined together, and we successfully applied for $8 million to implement a strategy to tackle the issue of vehicular homelessness. And we'll talk more about that plan later in the presentation. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly to discuss specific information from our recent point-in-time count with some specifics about the city of Carpinteria.
Good evening. David kind of stole my thunder, so that's okay. Always glad to be here, resident of Carpinteria. The 2024 point-in-time count, as David mentioned, was conducted at the end of January. It revealed an increase countywide of 232 persons for a total of 2,119 unhoused persons. One thing that is a good in that trend is, as David mentioned, more people were sheltered. So if homelessness is being experienced in our community, we want to make sure that people have a place to be sheltered and not living unsheltered. The point-in-time count, though, is only one measurement of homelessness in our community and is limited to a single night, and we always like to remind everyone of that. Over the course of the year, there are approximately double the amount shown here that receive services while experiencing homelessness. I think in 2023, it was 4,333 people. Populations that were disproportionately represented in the increase include the persons living in vehicles, families with minor children, and persons newly experiencing homelessness, which as Joe mentioned and David mentioned, I believe, is those disturbing trends. Soaring rents and very limited vacancies on the rental market are steadily increasing the number of persons experiencing homelessness in our community. Next slide. So here you see the breakdown of the different areas and regions of the county to give you a better look. And this is looking at from 2020 to 2024. And so when you're seeing that 8% increase, that's over the 4-year period. And the pandemic was just an interesting time, right? And so there were some additional protections in place, emergency rental assistance. And so you can see that dip kind of in the middle, and then it comes back up to almost the same number. Go to the next slide. So here, while the trend from 2020 to 2024 had that 8% increase, when just comparing 2023 to 2024, we see a much greater increase here in Carpinteria. The number of vehicles counted in the central business district area was significant, and those are those yellow dots. If you look on the comparison between the 2023 map and the 2024 map, those yellow dots in the central business district were vehicles. Since the point-in-time count, we are seeing more vehicles in residential areas, moving out of the central business district and now along residential neighborhoods or near parks. And we're getting frequent complaints. I'm guessing some of those complaints we saw in David's report about the Foothill and Linden area, where a combination of vehicles, including church buses, work trucks, and persons living in RVs and vehicles. So we truly believe there is a need for further expansion of the safe parking program, and we're just really encouraged by the stats shared earlier about how much success they've had already. So in addition to the point-in-time count, as part of the coordinated entry system, detailed housing assessments are completed to link each person experiencing homelessness to the most appropriate housing intervention. And I think my numbers differ a little bit from David's this time in that we show over the last year that 12 households in Carpinteria have transitioned out of homelessness with assistance from the continuum of care. The coordinated entry system creates a by-name list of active persons experiencing homelessness seeking housing assistance. And the current by-name list, which the chart is a little confusing, but if you look at those numbers to the side, the current by-name list has 23 households residing in Carpinteria seeking assistance. And as compared to the countywide data, we see that persons in Carpinteria are generally older. And of those 23 households that are actively seeking assistance, 15, or the vast majority, require permanent supportive housing to end their homelessness. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lucille Boss. And one of my, probably the last times I might get to introduce Lucille, as she's been our encampment response coordinator for the last 2 years, making some remarkable progress. And she's now transitioned to a new role. So Lucille, thanks for still being with us tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. So shifting to some of our encampment resolution efforts, the countywide community action plan, which was adopted by the Board of Supervisors and also this council in 2021, called for strengthening the regional support system to obtain and maintain housing. A key action of this strategy was to create a coordinated encampment response. And the county's encampment resolution strategy and response protocol, also adopted in 2021, relies on an effective system of care that can ultimately provide shelter, housing, and services to meet the needs of persons experiencing homelessness. The collective efforts to resolve encampments among county, cities, Caltrans, and railroad partners between 2021 and 2023 resulted in removal or clearing of approximately 700 active encampments. This includes 321 led by county efforts, and through the last calendar year, 169 sites in South Santa Barbara County, and that includes Montecito beaches, unincorporated area creeks, and open spaces, and Isla Vista. Of the persons residing in the removed or cleared encampments, 289 have relocated to shelter or housing, and there's been a 13% decrease in calls for service per county fire. These efforts and results were funded by County American Rescue Plan Act, state and local fiscal recovery funds, and California Encampment Resolution Funding Program. This strategy, including the encampment response protocol, have been leveraged in applications for funding, including, as you've heard tonight, the competitive statewide California Encampment Resolution Fund. Santa Barbara County, in partnership with the City of Carpinteria and other jurisdictions throughout our county, has been awarded in 3 rounds of funding. One focused on resolving encampments along the transit corridor, another to deploy a specialized outreach team to address encampments in waterways, including riverbeds, creeks, and beaches, and most recently to resolve vehicular encampments. I'll turn it back now over to Joe.
So we'll finish off here tonight reviewing some of the collaborative efforts agreed upon by county staff and Carpinteria leadership over the past years. Some of these efforts have been achieved and continue to bear fruit, while others we've only just begun to initiate, and a few others remain as opportunities for action in our near future. On the right side of the slide, in the green rectangles, we list those efforts that were initiated by open and creative dialogue on the topic of homelessness in Carpinteria, and upon which many of us have taken action and achieved success in the community. We now have a successful parking operation being conducted within our city limits, with those efforts being operated by the national leader in safe parking innovation and effectiveness, New Beginnings, and we hope to see more of that. Also, we have greatly improved our ability to see into and understand how homelessness looks in Carpinteria by incorporating into the Carp Connect Volunteer Wednesday Lunch into our coordinated entry system and navigation plan. Another point of success worth mentioning is that we've had 8 Carpinteria citizens who were once experiencing homelessness successfully acquire and maintain housing through the Emergency Houser Voucher Program. Now, in the amber-orange rectangles in the middle left column on this slide, you'll see that we have initiated an action plan that connects us with landlords of private market rental units when housing choice vouchers are made available. But finally, in the 2 red rectangles, we see a few remaining opportunities that have been very challenging, specifically in the city of Carpinteria, and that is funding beds of any type for the unhoused of the city actually being within the city. Next slide. So we know how to end homelessness, and we know what the actions are required to do so. We do it by increasing the combined availability of attainable housing and effective services. And how do we make this happen? By changing the way we look at the creation and availability of affordable housing while increasing our support to the hardworking outreach teams, case managers, and everyone involved in the service provider workforce. So Mayor Clark, honorable members of the council, thank you for your time this evening. We look forward to your questions and comments.
All right, thank you for your report. Any questions?
I'm not sure if this information is available, but for the increase in Carpinterian families experiencing homelessness with minor children, how much of an increase has that been? Because I feel like that's something we don't have much of a visual about, and I think it's important for us to understand more if that's going up.
I don't have the number from the actual point in time count, so I apologize for that. I don't think there were many counted that day, but I think David and I could both share anecdotally that we are seeing the same type of increase that we're seeing countywide happen here in Carpinteria. I know there's, that I know of, just in the last couple of months, we've had 6 families, at least, I think, that are literally homeless in their vehicle that have reached out from Carpinteria that we've been trying to serve. But do you have any thoughts on that, on more families?
Right. Because of the scale of our city, yes, it is low numbers, but it is, definitely an increase over past years for those families. So, yeah, I don't have the exact numbers as well, but it's probably in that range.
Yeah. And are those families, are they eligible for the New Beginnings, the safe parking program? I understand it's full right now, but in terms of looking ahead at potentially expanding that.
Yeah, I know we really struggled. I think Michael and I actually were on the phone a couple of times because we had two families and the safe parking program was full that were very willing to be in safe parking, but we didn't have enough spots. But I believe there are families that have been served by the lot,
Got it.
the existing lot, but definitely a need for more.
Thank you. And this is more for David, but in terms of the encampments, among the locations you mentioned, are there any that are particular hotspots in terms of they get cleared and then they get used again? And then if there are hotspots, how are those dealt with, or how can we deal with those
Right.
better?
Yeah, we tend to see in our creek systems, and they often return. And we do have procedures in place for cleanup, so we have some standards that we try to meet. And then, but unfortunately, the ones that we see come back are resistant to services, and so it's pretty much just going down. We'll move them, clean them up, and then they'll move to another location either in our park system or close to the parks, and then return sometime later. And so it's just a constant circle.
Yeah, and for people that do see them, because I've had residents reaching out about how best to get in touch with the city, would that be through the app so that code compliance can get connected with the location and everything?
And not only that, is that then we can also share, within different departments. And so I can do my part and then pass it on to Public Works, which does an awesome with the abatement and storage of the personal property.
Great, thank you.
And just to, sorry to interrupt, just to add to that, the great thing about entering a service request through the app or the website is it allows you to pinpoint an exact location. So rather than telling us there's a homeless encampment on the Carpinteria Bluffs, right? If you experience one and you've got your cell phone there and you've got your app, you can actually pinpoint the exact GPS pin, and that really narrows down kind of the search for our staff when we go out to try to make contact with that individual.
That's great. And then my last question is, I understand from the staff report that we will be getting an update on the safe parking program and how that's going later on this year. Is that right?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Slarson, that's correct. I believe that the safe parking pilot program is set to expire in October of this year. And so I anticipate sometime before then, staff will be bringing you an item to let the council explore options for whether they want to continue that program on an ongoing basis and or expand it.
Okay, great. That sounds good. Thank you very much.
I have a question. With the recent court decision for cities allowed to push people who are encampment to other areas without providing housing, how does the county plan to address that?
So right now, our county council, along with other department leaders that interact with homelessness, like perhaps sheriff, probation, public defender, so forth, are all basically getting together to make an analysis and a recommendation to our board of supervisors on any changes to our approach in addressing homelessness. So at this point in time, I don't have any comment on that.
And are cities being involved too? Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, Gurira?
I only say that because I'm not directly involved in that conversation yet, I'm not even sure that it's convened. I can't answer that one either, but
Thank you.
I'll be sure to, it sounds like you're suggesting we do that.
It won't hurt?
Yeah,
Thanks.
understood.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much. We'll see if the public has any comments, and we do have a speaker slip. Case Van Wingerden? Welcome.
Hi, Kees van Wingerden. Good evening, Mayor Clark, Vice Mayor Alacon, and Ms. Solazan, Wade, Roy. Liberty and justice for all. Local vehicle dwellers that are not able to speak for themselves. Being a vehicle dweller is not a choice. It's an effort not to become homeless. Recently, St. Vincent de Paul and Roque helped a neighbor in need living in her vehicle at Safe Park in Santa Barbara. After she lost her job, she lost everything except her vehicle and a few personal belongings. When we did our intake, our neighbor in need requested $550 to renew her vehicle insurance in order to remain in safe parking. Her insurance lapsed as she did not have those funds. At that time, our neighbor in need had already accepted a 20-hour-a-week job in retail, which she was training for. St. Vincent de Paul paid $550 to renew her insurance so she could remain in safe parking and start rebuilding her life. Our neighbor in need is now working full-time, looking for housing near her job, and is planning on eliminating her vehicle once she secures housing. Safe parking is extremely well run, requiring a safe vehicle with current vehicle registration, insurance. The vehicle dweller needs to be in possession of a valid driver's license. Vehicle dwellers that qualify and want to remain in safe parking need to follow the rules and respect each other's space and privacy. New Beginnings provides support services, including obtaining housing for vehicle dwellers, so they can help themselves and become self-sufficient contributing members in our community going forward. I respectfully ask that you consider creating 50 to 60 safe parking spaces to prevent people from becoming homeless in our community, thereby lending a hand to our neighbors in need.
We have another slip from Rogelio Delgado.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members. We know that every picture tells 1,000 words. Same goes with every car has a different story. Let me share you one. Talking about homelessness. This was a mom, 3 daughters, all minors. They live inside a truck. No job, no money, only a truck. They would live outside businesses, on streets, and then they would go to school. That family split. One family went to Santa Barbara. Now that 2 of the daughters are adults, one is a minor. The mom relocated to Las Vegas. 2 daughters relocated to Santa Barbara. I asked one of the daughters, now an adult, I asked her last year, well, what about that truck? You can sell it now. $10,000. Yeah, I know. She replied, but I don't sell it because of fear that will be homelessness again, and that truck is our home. So as I go by that truck every day, every single day on Baylor, I remember that story. And I say it's okay for the truck to be there because that's hope. That's a hope for that family. Hope that they never go back to live inside a truck, but it's there, just in case. Thank you.
Thank you for your story. Anybody else? All right, and do we have anybody on Zoom, Brian?
We do, Mayor. We have David or Susan Allen. David or Susan, go ahead.
It's Susan here again. Just thinking about the reports that we had tonight, October for the safe parking program seems way far off. I'm hoping you can get staff looking at this and getting locations. Hopefully, another location that would serve single women or families, so there's a little bit more feeling of safety. I know several people that are in the safe parking program, and everything I hear is just thankfulness over and over for how it's affected their lives. And once again, in regard to your code compliance and public works, I've had the opportunity to see how they handle homeless situations, and I can say I was just blown away with the dignity, kindness that they showed. Again, these guys need a pat on the back and a little bit more help. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, that concludes Zoom comment.
Okay. But regarding Susan's comments, do we have any capacity to start looking for other locations, assuming the council is going to want to increase it?
Mayor Clark, we have been working or in talks with both the New Beginnings folks and also Dignity Moves folks, looking for locations for either program, really. It's kind of an ongoing search. It's, challenging here with a small city and limited opportunities, but we're constantly trying to, think up locations or put either of those groups in touch with property owners that might be interested in exploring these options. So I don't have any particular locations right now, but we're staying on top of it to keep looking for ideas.
Yeah, good, thanks. All right, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the council for a motion to receive and file.
I have a question.
Sure.
Well, if Dignity Moves do build in Carpinteria, does that count as arena numbers, or is it something completely different?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Lee, I believe that there is the ability to count, supportive housing or other types of housing units for homelessness towards RENA, but it falls into, I think, typically like a special needs category.
Okay, is that considered low income, extremely low?
It can be. I think, again, it depends on the duration. So if it's, kind of shorter term, supportive or interim housing, I don't think it necessarily counts into one of the income categories. It instead falls into this other bucket of special needs, whereas opposed to if it's permanent housing, then we might be able to count it as low or very low income housing.
Thanks.
All right.
I move to receive and file the annual report concerning ongoing efforts to assist people experiencing homelessness and to address issues related to homelessness in the community.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And we're going to take this opportunity to take a short break here, and we will reconvene shortly to do item number 14 on the agenda. Good evening and welcome back. We're reconvening the city council meeting, and we're going to be taking up item number 14 now, which is consideration of community interest in establishing a community center in Carpinteria at 801 Linden Avenue.
Mayor, council, and community members, I'm joined today by Jeanette Gann, our Parks, Recreation, Community Services Director, will be assisting me as needed, and also Jen Akos will be filling in any blanks that perhaps I miss. So if we can go to the next slide, just quickly a review of our agenda. We'll start off with our staff recommendation, which is already changed since we posted this based on some new information that we got just 6 or 7 hours ago. So unfortunately, it wasn't able to be part of this report. We'll go over some of the community center development timeline, what benefits of the community center could be, how this ties into some of the city council's policies. We'll review our financial status, our funding options, which will also be changing, and then a chance for questions and discussion. So the first recommendation was to receive and file this report on community interest in establishing a future community center. In addition to that, we were considering a 6-month, up to a 6-month option at a rate of $10,000 per month to allow the city time to find out from the federal government a grant award that we were hoping to get word on, as well as to be able to gauge. Oh, sorry. Didn't know if that was for me. In order to gauge what the support would be from the community and from the philanthropic community as well in terms of supporting this. The news that has changed is that we did get the award amount, at least tentatively. It hasn't gone through its final approval, and that amount is $850,000 grant. Originally, we were anticipating, well, I should start by saying we submitted the grant for $5 million. I don't think we ever thought that we would get the full amount, but I think we were thinking that $1.5 million would kind of be the amount that we would get, with $1 million being the lowest, so it's a little bit lower than what we were expected. So the 6-month option may not be the best way to go, and so we'll talk that out as we go through. And 3, of course, is for you to direct staff to explore additional funding opportunities and partnerships for the potential acquisition, tenant improvements, and maintenance of a community center. And this would include community outreach and engagement to gauge public interest and funding support. So the timeline, so my job, and I've been going around introducing myself to various groups, is to stay completely unbiased and to make sure you guys get information on both sides. I will say that the idea of purchasing a community center came up prior to January, I think, even a few months before that, and I thought to myself, absolutely not. The city was not in a financial position to even consider purchasing whether it be a senior center or a community center at that time. Fully supportive of the idea and concept, because I think it could be a great asset to the community, but financially, it was an absolute no from the point of finances. So that brings us to January. I had just started my position as city manager, and Congressman Carbajal had set up a meeting just to discuss, to introduce ourselves and to talk about projects in the community. We talked about Rincon Trail and several other projects, and when we got to our senior services and various programs in the community, the idea that there was this project funding that would become available for a project like that, this is the first that I'd heard of it. And so it was at that point that Congressman Carball said, at some point in the future, we'll get you information on being able to apply for funding. So April of 2024, I had heard, as I mentioned prior, that there was some interest in Oh. Okay. So we just have a technical difficulty. There's people that aren't able to hear us via Zoom. So we just need to take a short break to try to address that so people can hear us. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2.
Okay, we're,
All right, Mayor, I think we have everything back on order now.
okay. Apologize for the delay here. We had a Zoom problem, but we're back on. So thank you for your patience.
So unfortunately, I'm just going to go back for those on Zoom, and I'll promise to say it much faster. Just a review of our agenda. We'll start off with the staff recommendation, which has changed due to some information we received just earlier today. We'll go over the community center development timeline, benefits of the community center, how those connect to city policies, are the city's financial status and how that impacts the decision-making process here tonight, and then also funding options and ending with questions and discussion. The first recommendation is just to receive and file the report. I also mentioned that initially we were looking at a 6-month option. The purpose of that option was to give the city up to 6 months to hear back from the federal government on a grant that we had applied for. We did hear about that number today, which makes the 6-month option not necessary, at least for that length of time. So it could be a shorter option or other types of agreements. And then lastly is to direct staff to continue to explore additional funding opportunities and partnerships for the potential acquisition as well as tenant improvements and maintenance of the community center. And this would include community outreach and engagement on the interest for the community center as well as funding support. The timeline there, January 24th, that's not when the application was available. That's when I learned from Congressman Carbajal that there would be an application available for a community center. In April, we learned that we actually had the wealthy family who's here with us tonight. Their trust owns that Rite Aid building, and that they were also interested in providing or in working with the city to purchase this building for use as a community center. In May is when the application actually became available. Believe it or not, it became available on a Thursday at about 11 a.m. and was due the next day by 5. We thought we would have at least 3 weeks or so to work on the grant, and our staff worked feverishly into the late night hours and up early the next morning to get that turned in. We also, in that time, were able to receive 19 letters of support for the project, and I know at least 2 of the organizations that submitted those letters have representatives here this evening. So later in May, we were informed that our project was selected as one of 15 projects to move forward. We still didn't know our funding amount or if we would be funded, but only that it had moved forward in the process. In June is when that House Appropriations Committee approval process begins. And previously, September 30th was our deadline that we hoped to receive funding. We had brought up the 6-month option because we were told that even that September deadline might not be met. And of course, again, we learned today, so there's change of information. In terms of community benefits, just briefly, it would be a facility for all community members. This effort really started with senior center activities, but the idea of having a building that large that could be used day and night opened it up to much more uses than just a senior center. So it would be for all community members, offering various programs and services that the city could either offer or offer in partnership with other organizations. It helps foster individual well-being, strengthen community connectedness, and expand education and recreation services. And one of the examples of strengthening community connectedness is as our law enforcement team has went to interact with the community. They've often done things like coffee with a cop that, where essentially they're trying to create an event that will bring community members so that they can engage with our law enforcement officers. Having something like a community center where people go to congregate naturally would allow law enforcement to engage with people through various groups that might be participating in activities at that community center. So it just gives a full city gathering space. Here's a list of the policies that are connected with this. First, we're here today as part of enhancing our public outreach. This is, there's some comments potentially on, why are we here? Why are we discussing this? And so the city staff, we have an obligation as different opportunities or things come our way that we have the responsibility of considering these opportunities and at least presenting them to the public for them to offer their feedback on and also for the council. And so that's what we're here doing this evening. Part of that community connectedness is in line with maintaining our city character. As we'll hear later today, one of the major obstacles to this project is the city's financial status. And so the fiscal sustainability is something that we'll touch on. Strengthen community institution and collaboration is one of the major things that will be impacted by this center, as mentioned by the 19 various groups that came together in just those few days to offer their letters of support. And then also the building would be able to use for other things such as staff trainings and things that sometimes we're limited to here in this building. So some of the project financial details, we're talking about approximate amounts here. There would need to, we're not really here to talk about the details of an agreement. We're talking about what are our next steps. If we decided to, if the council wished to move forward, we could begin discussing specific details around what an agreement would look like and the selling price. But so right now, tonight, we'll be speaking of approximates and estimates. So an approximate purchase price of $5 million. The square footage is 7,300 square feet, equating to $684 or $685 rounded per square feet. And the option to purchase agreement, as I mentioned, is not something necessarily that would make sense at this point other than a shorter version, so I'll skip past that. We did a estimated annual maintenance of the building, and again, just an estimate at about $80,000 a year. And then, of course, there would be ongoing program and staff costs, which are yet to be determined because we would have to reach out to various organizations that were interested in maybe partnering and working in the space, and that would affect a lot of those things. And without direction yet from the council, we haven't gotten that far into inquiring on those things. So, as the council is very aware, and some of the public here today, the city had to make several reductions and deferments to balance this year's budget, and that included even eliminating some positions. And so why are we even considering something that costs $5 million just for the purchase price? Well, some of the things is there's limits on reserves and available fund balances. One of the things you'll remember from the budget presentation is that we have two buckets of money. We have those it has to be ongoing revenues used for ongoing expenses. We do not have the ongoing revenues to support ongoing expenses related to this program. So that would be the programming, that would be the ongoing maintenance and those things. What we do have is some limited reserves and available fund balances. Those can be used for one-time purchases only. And so if we were to consider an option or any other agreement with a certain cost, the council could consider that as part of using available fund balance. But I just want to make sure there's clarification that this is not money that could have been used for any of the ongoing expenses that you might have considered as part of the budget process related to ongoing expenses. So, and in terms of how we use those limited reserves and fund balances, again, one-time expenses, also urgent and emergency needs, as well as maybe unforeseen costs related to current approved projects, as we know we've experienced with a lot of our CIP, capital improvement program projects that have sometimes come in higher than expected, and so that kind of money is there for that. So if the city doesn't have the funding, where would the funding potentially come from? So, and why are we here? So the city does have a Measure X fund balance of $386,000. That is the money that could potentially be used for a one-time expense. That's far from the $5 million purchase price, and certainly not enough to keep a program like this going in the years to come. So we have just preliminarily been in contact with some of the foundations here locally. Palmer Jackson was in here with the Ann Jackson Family Foundation. The council recognized him a few meetings ago related to some donations to the community pool. The Santa Barbara Foundation is another organization that we have spoke to, and then La Centra Summerlin Foundation. I want to make a point that none of these foundations have committed to anything or any certain number, and it would have to go through all of their various processes to consider whether they would support this or not. But these foundations have shown interest. And so part of what we're talking about tonight is with council direction is we can consider what these, or we can continue discussions with these foundations if they see that there's community interest in moving forward with the community center on what these amounts would be, and we could come back to the council at a later date and let you know what that, what those numbers might be. So some of the options, which again I'm going to have to think on my feet here because some of these are not exact, but would be to appropriate monies from the fund balance or reserve balance. Another option that's not up there is that the council could appropriate an amount pending receipt of revenue from an outside source. So in order for me to spend money, I still need to have an approved expense line item. And, the council could approve that up to a certain amount, but I would have to potentially bring in, or I would have to bring in that amount in order to spend it, which would allow us to move forward with any agreements that we might enter into. And then, of course, after questions and answers and hearing from the community, the council could direct staff to explore additional funding opportunities, as well as provide any other direction to staff. So that is it in sum. I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions from the council as well as comments from the community, and then I will be able to add a lot more information from there. There's, of course, detailed information in the staff report that I'm also able to respond to now as well. And that concludes the first portion of this report prior to questions and answers.
Okay, do we have any questions?
So for the $5 million purchase price, what does the city have right now to be able to apply towards that? With not thinking ahead to what we might get from different foundations, but what do we have right now?
The Measure X fund balance that was up there, but that, I mean, honestly, my recommendation is that the city is not in a financial position to use those other than for, you know, if the council wanted to consider a small amount like the $60,000 that was an original 6-month option. I really couldn't advise the council to do any more. We have emergencies that come up during the winter with the recent weather events. And like I said, the CIP projects have been coming in at higher amounts. So we do have some limited funds in there, but they wouldn't quite make a dent in that purchase price. And it just, with our fiscal position, that's not something that I'm advising here this evening.
And in terms of ongoing costs, like staffing and programming, is that something that staff currently have the bandwidth to do, to take on a community center?
Yes, good question. Thank you, Councilmember Solorzano. So I was reminded by Jenna just to remind that we actually do have $850,000 in the federal grant money, and again, still a ways to go. In terms of the staff bandwidth, so we do have, the council has allocated, I think, roughly $235,000 for staffing and things related to the senior center. Those staff could be located at this center where they're operating now. Is clearly a much smaller space than a 7,300 square foot. They would not be able to manage probably that level of space with only 2 people. So we'd either have to keep the place small with, you know, various walls or things at first, or again, work with partners. So I think the 2 staff that we have, it would be an adjustment for them to move locations. I think we feel comfortable for that. But if there were to be expanded programming, that would either have to be through partnerships or additional staff that would have to also come from either community support or the philanthropic community.
And just for clarification, are those 2 full-time staff, or is it 1 full-time and 1 part-time staff?
Yes, Councilmember Solorzano, thank you for that clarification. It is 1.5 FTEs, so we have 1 full-time and 1 half-time employee there.
And they're currently they're dedicated to senior programming, right? So they'd have to be, if this were to move forward, eventually they'd have to be rerouted towards more than just senior programming?
Another good question. So yes, they are completely dedicated to senior programming. So one of the ideas for the community center would be is that community centers are usually not used very often during school time, especially Monday through Friday before kids get out of school. And so people tend to utilize those times and hours for senior centers. So during that time, they would be dedicated to that. I don't know that they would have the bandwidth to take on additional community programming. Those would be things that would have to be modifications of perhaps current programming that's going on at the Aquatic Center. They could offer things that they're doing there, different activities out of those rooms. But again, it would have to be explored through partnerships and potentially additional funding to allow us to bring on other staff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the reason I ask the question is I want to be sensitive to the fact that I know staff already have a lot on their plate, including the ongoing programming that we have now. So I just wanted to kind of clarify where we are in terms of staffing going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that because that's what I was saying during the annual work plan, and all of you are very aware of that. And so as we talk about these opportunities and, you know, why are we considering that? And that was one of the other public comments is that I read was along, you know, staff's time to pursue these. And so when we talked about creating cap space or time for our management team, it was to do things. Their time was booked, you know, from when they got there to when they left. And so they weren't taking time for training. They weren't taking time to plan and vision. They weren't taking the time to train for that emergency that might come. So part of pulling back was so that staff could, when it happened, emergency, be able to deal with it. When opportunities like this come about, that we would be able to explore these opportunities. And so that's part of pulling back so that people don't have something from start to the end of the day. I know myself personally, a third of my day is always something I didn't plan when I walked in the door, and so those things have to be built into my day. And you know, certain opportunities like this don't come along very often, and so we certainly have it built in to explore and pursue these. I shouldn't say pursue, but to at least explore pursuing these types of options.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, well, I guess we'll listen to the public. We have a number of speaker slips. The first one is Christina Collins. Welcome, Christina.
Good evening, Mayor Clark and council members and staff of the city. I am the executive director of the Linda Fairley Carpinteria Arts Center, Christina Calkins, and I'm here today also with my board chair, Tim Cohen, and some volunteers to share that we were one of the organizations that wrote a letter of support, and we are the neighbors of the Rite Aid building right next door, and our mission is creating a vibrant community through the arts. And so we're already a community center, a gathering space. We have the outside courtyard. Can you imagine if the Rite Aid building became a community center? The big indoor facility paired with our outdoor facility, what an asset for our community to create the vibrant community. And so I just want to offer our full support, and we want to be involved in the process along the way. And I also want you to consider something Michael didn't mention, was the option to rent the community center, the facility. Perhaps we could do rentals together with a Arts Center courtyard to have indoor-outdoor events. We partnered with the city to help roll out the senior services program, the Age Well. I did for some months the calendar before you had city staff doing that calendar. And we are limited at our facility. Our indoor studios can only accommodate 20 to 25 people, depending on what type of event we're doing as far as classes for seniors or the community. So having the large building of the Rite Aid facility would just be such an asset for our community. I've lived here over 15 years now, and I have to say, when I moved here, I was shocked that there wasn't a community center. I had never seen a town that didn't have a community center. We have the library, but the next step is the community center, and the Linda Fairley Carpinteria Arts Center is here to support as a neighbor in the heart of downtown Carpinteria.
Thank you for your comments, Christina. Donna Jordan?
I should say thanks a lot. I'm not sure I really mean it at this point. Since, excuse me, it sounds like a spanner has really been thrown into this this whole evening. And I wasn't going to be popular anyway with most of the group here tonight, because I was going to come and say, you really need to get your finances in order before taking any major steps like this. I think the comments that we just heard, I totally think are wonderful. I mean, if this was something that could actually be done, it would be great. It would be a wonderful asset for the community. But I was not even in favor of putting the option in place. And I think we're just not in a position right now to spend that kind of money, $10,000 a month. 6 months could go by and then, oh gosh, we need another 6 months. And I also just have to add that I don't feel that's an appropriate use of Measure X. I am a senior, clearly, and so I think your goal is great. But I also voted for Measure X for the reasons that were on the ballot when that measure came up. And there is nothing in there about community centers or this kind of purchase of buildings or anything like that. You know, that was done to maintain sheriff's deputies, improve disaster preparedness, repair streets, that's my favorite, protect beaches, prevent cuts to the library, prevent cuts to programs that are already in place, address homelessness. I don't think any of those would fit. So I urge your council to continue keeping this as a goal and exploring what might be able to be done in the future. We're a very patient community. That's how we got most of the wonderful things we have, the Girls and Boys Club, the swimming pool, the skateboard park, all those things took a long time, but we finally achieved them. So get the finances in order, talk to people. If you got some major grants, that would be great. And I'd also say explore how you might be able to spend that $850,000 if it's really coming in to put it to use to expand the really, really good programs you've already started. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Donna. Next is Scott Barish. Welcome, Scott.
Mayor, council members, staff. I just wanted to take a minute to present an idea to add to this concept that you're thinking about in terms of the community center. I know it's very early on in the process. I don't want to add more stress to staff, but my wife and I are talking about, I'm a detail person, she's a big picture person. But has there been consideration of also adding senior housing to this project, adding a floor that provides subsidized senior housing that then expands the opportunity for partnerships with individual groups in the community that might also be interested in doing this? It may be a little bit, different. It's a huge challenge. It may be a new model for mixed use in this community. But I think you I would like to suggest that you do due diligence in maybe thinking about that as a concept, as you go forward with this project. So, thank you.
Thanks for your idea. Lucy Rogers. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff. My name is Lucy Rogers, and as you can see, I'm also a senior. I'm living the good life here in Carpinteria, so lucky to be here. And I wanted to just give you and the public a quick overview of some of the attempts that have been made to get a permanent senior center over the years. Carpinteria was established as a city in 1965, as you know. And just 5 years later, Carpinteria Senior Citizens, Inc. was formed as a nonprofit dedicated to providing activities for seniors ages 55 and up. Many attempts were made over the years to encourage the city to provide a senior center. Sandy Evans' father was instrumental and was one of those who approached the city with various opportunities to purchase or build a senior center. But those attempts were always met with concerns about the budget, and nothing was done, and the opportunities were missed, even though the timing has always been right. We are a city that's heavily populated with seniors, and it is time for us to do something about a senior center. About 4 years ago, Roz, Cindy, and Kathy began urging the city to build a senior center or establish a senior center. This time, fortunately, now City Manager Michael Ramirez took an interest in that possibility, but first needed to ascertain the need. So the city set about a survey that was taken. It firmly supported a senior center. Girls Inc. then stepped up and offered to sponsor seniors for twice-weekly activities, followed by the Arts Center, as you heard, that became the sponsor. Then the city leased the Vets Hall to Carpinteria Senior Citizens, Inc. to continue the senior activities, which grew to 5 days per week, staffed by volunteers such as myself and Paulette Miller, and the city also entered into a no-cost lease with the gym next door so that Cindy could could continue to offer her exercise classes twice weekly. All of these activities were provided at no cost to seniors. With the knowledge that seniors would in fact attend the activities offered, your council kindly provided the budget to hire 1.5 FTEs to staff the program, and the Age Well program that we know now began. Under the leadership of Jenna Jenkins, the program has continued to grow. In January, I submitted a public comment requesting that the purchase of a senior center be included in the city's work plan, and provided information about the Rite Aid building that the city could purchase. The suggestion was included on the discussion slides for council and was supported by Councilmember Lee. Thank you. Although it wasn't included in the work plan at that time, the idea has been pursued further. Staff contacted Carpinteria Senior Citizens, Inc. We're one of the ones that provided a letter of support to apply for the grant that we've heard about tonight. So that does bring us to this modified agenda item. I wholeheartedly support that we continue to pursue purchasing the Rite Aid building. Costs are going to continue to go up and up. Budgets are always going to continue to present problems. We have a very, very generous community. We have people who will step in once a location is identified, like the Rite Aid building. Until there's a location that we can tell someone, we need your funds to do this building, it can't be achieved. But fundraising is totally possible. I do believe that we'll be successful in getting other grants. I'm very grateful for Salud Carbajal at least being able to get the $850,000 for us. So please, don't push this aside. Let's continue to pursue it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Mike Wondolowski. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'm Mike Wondolowski, speaking for Carpinteria Valley Association. Unfortunately, as much as we wish otherwise, this agenda item is not about a community center. It's about financial stability. As we stated in our written comment letter, the staff report section, Financial Considerations, says it all and makes it perfectly clear the city should not pursue this proposal at this time. A few key quotes from that section. The city is currently facing significant financial challenges, and to achieve a balanced budget, increasing expenses and stagnant revenues, the city had to implement several reductions and deferments. And with limited reserves and available fund balances, the city is prioritizing use of reserves. And the kicker, direct quote from the staff report in front of you, it's crucial to recognize the city does not have the financial capability to sustain major or recurring expenses for this program. That's pretty clear direction. When this council finalized the fiscal year 24-25 budget last month, that process included prioritizing potential expenditures and making hard choices about what would be funded this year and what would be deferred. And some of those were important activities and programs that were deferred. This proposal has not been analyzed in that same context, even though the funding request was in process during the budget process. Even if the federal funds fully cover the $5 million purchase, The other costs alone are prohibitive. One-time expense of $600,000 for improvements and renovations, an annual cost of $80,000 for maintenance, plus an unknown share of additional operating expenses, plus new city staff time to manage and staff the facility. There's also the loss of property tax revenue that is not accounted for in this, and the loss of sales tax if it were again retail, as Rite Aid was. Again, the staff report stated the city does not have the financial capability, no matter how much we wish it did, to sustain major recurring expenses for this program. Sure, of course there'd be benefits, great benefits, for a city-owned community center downtown. But pursuing that goal without answering the critical priority and financial questions I raised is like, let's get a pony, without acting like an adult and considering who's going to care for the pony, who's going to feed the pony, who's going to clean up after the pony, and pay the vet bills when the pony gets sick or hurt. That would not be responsible management of the city. We strongly urge you to not pursue this project at this time and to direct staff to focus instead on the priorities this council made very clear in the recently approved fiscal year 24-25 budget. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mike. Next up is Fred Shaw.
Mayor, council, staff, public. As a Carpinterian, I really do like the idea of a community center in the heart of our downtown. And I'd like to thank the Welty family for their generous offer of an option to purchase for 6 months. However, after reviewing our 2024-25 budget, I'm very concerned about allocating $60,000 out of the Measure X funds or reserve funds in order to pay for that option to purchase, especially given the cuts that we've already had to make to balance the budget that we have. While holding on to those first buyer rights to the property for the next 6 months in hopes that HUD or someone else would grant us enough money to purchase the property, can the city fiscally really afford to do that during a budget downtime? And more significantly, in my mind, if the city could find the funding to acquire the property, who will fund the $600,000 to rehab the property and the $80,000 each year to maintain it? When the city last acquired a property, which was Bluffs 3, via the land trust, an endowment fund was required to be in place for repairs and maintenance before the purchase was completed. And I would hope at the very least, if we can find the funding, that would happen, that we have an endowment fund in place to take care of that property. This purchase should really be no different than that. I would be in favor of option 3 because I really do believe that we can have a community center here in town. It's just at this time, I don't think the city can financially afford to pay for it itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Patrick O'Connor. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and staff. I'll keep it brief. I tend to agree with what Donna and Mike and Fred have said. I think the generosity of the Welties is, it goes without saying. And I'll just go right to a little bit more of a finer point on the financials, just to ask the question. In our budget assumptions, do we assume revenue from that property in any form? I'm just questioning whether the demise of Rite Aid was assumed to be a positive or a negative take in the budget. So if we go down this path, I think to Mike's point, if we're not taking into account the lack of revenue, but we assumed it in the budget, it could be a double whammy for this process. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's the last speaker slip I have. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, welcome. May you fill out another speaker slip when you're done? You're getting good at that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rogelio Delgado, Carpinteria resident. I've been living in Carpinteria for a long, long time, and back then it was just a small office for community services. Nowadays, the only office that I can think of is main school, Angelica Ornelas. That's why she's there. A lot of people, any questions, regardless of the subject, she's there. She's always there. It's a small office. Now, thinking with the heart, yes, this community center at the Rite Aid building is great. Great. That's all that people need, regardless of race. Help. That's what my heart is saying. And probably a lot of people have that heart. But here comes the brain. But the brain says, hold on. The budget. It's always the budget, regardless of any organization. School board, there's always that problem, the budget, deficit. How can we fix that? This reminds me of La Casa de la Raza in Santa Barbara. It's been there for a long, long time, but a lot of problems. I think that we should study what those problems were. That it's been on the news for many, many years. A lot of community services, but there has been always this problem. The budget. So I think that the heart say yes, but the brain says, hold on Linden Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Anybody on Zoom, Brian?
We do, Mayor. We've got 3 speakers so far.
Okey-doke.
First one is Lorraine McIntyre. Lorraine, go ahead.
Good evening, council and staff, and mayor. Listen, when the opportunity knocks, you open the door. There isn't a better location, a better deal than this being offered to us right now. This will not come around again. If we don't take the opportunity to buy this building, somebody else will buy it and turn it into a for-profit business. It will not be available for many, many, many years, if at all, for a community center. This is the ideal location for a community center. It is something that the Downtown T needs. On behalf of the Downtown T Business Advisory Board, we wrote a letter in support of purchasing this building. Please do not let the budget sway you. As Lucy pointed out, as others pointed out, grants and funding will come if there's a location. In fact, there was a movie made. If you build it, they will come. Trust me on this. We need to do it. Please, just don't write it off so easily. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine.
All right, next speaker is Emerita Salm. Emerita, go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The staff report states that Carpinteria is the only city in Santa Barbara County without a community center. Do all these other communities live within walking distance to the world's safest beach, a community pool, a skate park, hiking and bike trails, an art center that holds many community events and classes, a library with a meeting room that is frequently used by organizations including Age Well and others, many parks, bike paths, youth clubs, including but not limited to Girls Inc. and Boys and Girls Club, and the Veterans Hall. Now the city is proposing renting a building that is has very limited parking, which for some reason nobody has mentioned. The old Rite Aid building on Linden Avenue for 6 months at $10,000 a month, excluding staff salaries and maintenance. The City Council voted to eliminate several positions, including the Community Resource Officer, because they could not afford it. But they want to rent a building they can't afford or use Measure X or reserve funds to pay for it until they get federal or grant funds to buy a building for $5 million. Have they considered the overall cost of such a building? What will the annual budget, including staff salaries, maintenance, building improvements, utilities, etc.? What is their 5-year plan on types of programs? I appreciate the activities provided by AgeWell, our library, the Art Center, and many other agencies that work to provide enrichment for our community. But we also know that teens prefer to use the skate park, hang out with their friends, are not very interested in events that somebody else schedules for them. So how did the senior center turn into a community center? Will it encourage more enthusiasm for a project we can't afford and makes us look like every other town in Santa Barbara? Carpinteria is not like any other town, and we don't want to be like any other town. Let's figure out our priorities and goals before buying a building or even renting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then the last one is David or Susan Allen. David or Susan, go ahead.
Susan again. This on paper sounds like a great project in a good location, although I agree there is no parking. But I do believe it is your job to keep the city financially protected. And unless you can guarantee that, I don't think it's a good project. And I would be remiss and needing to remind you that council made a commitment a number of years ago to build a neighborhood park, and nothing has happened with that. And all these other projects are coming forward and getting support. But the one that you voted up to support, nothing has happened. So I just remind you of that, and please don't forget that commitment. Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes Zoom comment.
All right, we'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the city council.
Well, I do want to say I really appreciate everybody who came out to share their thoughts on this. This is not, I know this is not a recommendation that we enter into lightly, and I agree that a community center would be a tremendous resource for the city. But I think at this time, I would have to say, just given what some other public commenters said too, I don't think that we are in the position to be able to move forward, even with the congressional funding. And the reason for that is that I think about things like staffing for the future, programming for the future, maintenance of the building, rehabilitation for the building, knowing that every capital project we've ever talked about has unforeseen costs and just on and on and on. And I just think that it would be a disservice to the really hard choices we made during the budget discussions and the cuts that we made to services that people did rely on and appreciate, for us to then go forward without having the funding in place to make this center be what we would want it to be and be what our community would deserve. So I think I don't personally, I support very much the idea of a community center. I support our AgeWell programming. I support the things that everybody here came to say that they value. But I also think it's telling that 2 former mayors expressed concerns with walking into a financial situation like this without having the resources in place for it.
Thank you.
Again, I would thank everybody for your comments, and Monica, you're right. I'm not here to speak in support and not support the project, but I would like to hear more from the public, more public comment down the road, and see that we continue this discussion for the August 26th. This is a very fluid situation that could change, that we could have endowment or not. So for me, more public comment and input will be vital to us making a solid decision about this proposal.
Thank you for your presentation, for the public's comments. There's no doubt that I think that a community center is needed or would be important to the community of Carpinteria, and it does seem like that location would be ideal. In terms of my hesitancy, really comes from where we stand fiscally, and so I wouldn't be able to stand behind it unless it was fully funded with partnerships in terms of the foundations. But of course, that only takes into account purchasing of the building and not necessarily being able to sustain the building. So that still comes into question about what that future planning would look like. And then my other question for you, in terms of the $850,000 that we were or are hopefully will be awarded, what can we do with those funds if we as a council decide to not pursue this particular purchase?
Yeah, Vice Mayor Alarcon, good question. I would like to just remind, that my recommendation would not be to use any funds for this. If I had a recommendation, it would be to, I guess, what some of the public commenters said, which is continue to explore outside funding options. The conversations that I have had with various, foundations has not been limited to the purchase price. They also have boards that have been down this road before, and they certainly don't want to provide money to something that would then not be able to be supported. So the funding amounts that we have talked about have been $6.5 million amounts to cover the tenant improvements, to cover maintenance, and also discussions about an endowment to continue, as was stated by one of the public commenters. So just wanted to clarify that we weren't just talking about the $5 million amount. To your other question, so the grant was submitted for this address, but in our research, the grant folks, which in this case is HUD, would be okay as long as we were considering a similar sort of project. So it could be a community center in another location. There are some constraints in that I believe the funds have to be expended within 12 months. So identifying another center in 12 months could potentially be difficult. We've also considered the Vets Hall where we currently are. However, that location is also part of a 5-year CIP plan for a library expansion. So to use funds there for a community center and then later not honor that spending of funds and to change it into a library expansion could be difficult. The city certainly could ask whether the funds could be used for another project like that, but that would be a little bit different from the community center approach. So we would just have to inquire. But what I know for almost nearly certain is that it could be used for the same type of use at another location.
Thank you.
So Michael, just to be clear, one possible scenario is that foundations could help us purchase this building, create an endowment, and we use the $850,000 for capital improvements in the building. Is that what you said?
Yes, Councilmember Lee. So the foundations I've been speaking with we were all waiting for the number. We were all waiting to see what the grant amount was going to come in at so that we could see what the gap was, right? And that's just one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is what is the community interest or need in having this program? And so I think those two will be two of the biggest decision factors, to your point, to getting potentially more public comment on what that would look like. Those are the things that these foundations and their boards are looking at when deciding whether to essentially, invest in the community with this type of a program. So it wouldn't necessarily be that they would do the purchase and the $850 would be for improvements. Like I said, some of the numbers we were looking at were like 6.5 And so whatever that minus 850 is, that was the amount that we were considering. So someone who's really good at math could tell you exactly what that amount was. 5.7 something was the amount that we were aiming for now, in addition to the grant funds.
Got it. Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, I'd like to thank the Welties for the generosity, actually offering this to the city. I understand the situation financially. Currently, yes, as a city, we are facing hardships of that one. But some background on myself. I was actually involved with the Tamal Interpretive Play Area that was built by Rotary with a $129,000 budget, even though it cost $1.1 million. I bring this up because we were able to find partners for that specifically because of the need or the desire that the community wanted to have. I also worked at the skate park project here, and we ended up starting with a budget 50% of what the finished project was. And again, because the community wanted it, they stepped up for it. I see this. Also, I was involved with the capital campaign for the Boys and Girls Club gymnasium. I was one of the major people for that one. That one, again, came in at double the price of what we anticipated. But again, people stepped up to help make that a possibility, a probability, and something that exists today. I bring this up because, true, we are facing a lot of financial issues. But I'm thinking that because of the Welties' generosity, and because of the potential time we do have, I think we have the good possibility of finding other means of financing this one. Originally, I thought that the money coming down from the government was going to be $5 million, which would be a substantial amount. It would cover that, but we would still have to cover some of the additional expenses beyond that. I still think the money may potentially be out there. And rather than saying at this point in time that we should walk away from it, I would like to give it a little bit more time. My thinking is even just a month or two to find out if, in fact, there are partners out there that would be willing to not only put forward the money to purchase the property, but also to potentially help us with assets of that one. We talk about operating expenses. Michael brought that up specific. Those financial obligations will definitely be out there. However, same thing. Just as a skate park, just as a playground, just as a Boys and Girls Club, there's going to be people out there. They're going to use it. They're going to benefit from it. And because of that, we never talk about the financing of maintenance of any of those things. It just happens because that's what the community wants. If, in fact, we want a community center, we'll find out about it. And I think and I believe, given a little bit of time, we may be able to find financial means to support that one. So rather than saying no right now, I'd like to give it a little bit of time, maybe a month or two, to see if, in fact, there are those answers out there. If there aren't, then we can readdress it and see where we're at. But for now, I do believe if the community wants it bad enough, we will find those funds.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think the community center is a really great idea. And this is a super location, really. I mean, the parking is a problem, but parking is a problem everywhere, so. But I'm on the finance committee, and we really, this year we were, right to the fiscal cliff, and it was very tough. And this project isn't even included in the budget. And somehow we made it work, but, a lot of smoke and mirrors and stuff. But, I think, as Michael Wondolowski said, the staff report says it all. The city is currently facing significant financial challenges, increased expenses, and stagnant revenues. Rising operational costs, declining revenues, unexpected expenditures. A grant is a wish and a prayer, and we used to be really good at getting grants. Don't seem to be so good lately. Something that hasn't been announced, but we know about it, that a big item in our capital improvement plan was pavement repair. But the major expense for that was a grant, and guess what? We didn't get the grant. It's $4 million, and so that whole program was relying on getting this grant, and we didn't get it. So that program doesn't happen. And so that's not a sure thing. And I hate to keep being able to promise people you're going to get something when it doesn't materialize. And further, in the staff report, I mean, it says that the city does not have the financial capability to sustain major or recurring expenses for this program, and this factor should be strongly considered. So I'm not in favor of going forward with this. It's too much a wish and a prayer, and I think my main concern is not the cost of the building, but the cost going forward. The library has become more than twice as expensive as we thought. And we love it, and we're doing a lot of good things, but there's really problems with the expenditure, especially if they're going to expand. Maybe they're going to need more employees. I don't know, but we don't know what the future expenses are going to be. I would need a lot more detailed information about what we think the real costs are going to be going forward. But at this point, I can't approve it.
So will you support continuing this at least 30 plus days, so we come back and have more detail, more discussion, more public input? Would
I favor that?
Will you not be against it?
Do you want to put that in a motion?
Well, I would, before we make a motion, I would say that, I mean, to wait for 30 days, I would really want to see from like the Santa Barbara Foundation that they will fund, a certain amount going forward for many years. And I'm not sure if they can, with their boards, if they can make a promise like that. If some of these foundations can make a promise that's going to be solid enough for us to build on. And so, because it sounds like they're going to have a lot of processes to go through. They're not just going to cut us a check for it, right? And that's my concern, is that even 30 days, I don't know that that's enough time to feel like we have everything ready to go to make a huge commitment like this.
Would you, going forward 30 days,
Yeah.
and we didn't find out, would you say, okay, that's it? Or is it you say, no, give us 60 more days?
No, 30 days. August 26th, let's make a hard date, whether we support it or not. I think that's fair. There's plenty of time for staff to do diligent work. The public will reach out to them, give more input. But at least we are not saying no to this project right now. It could change. The foundation could say yes, right? Or no, but we'll find out either way.
Does staff think that 30 days would be enough time to have a detailed breakdown of what the cost projections would be like looking ahead, so, maybe 10 years into the future, and then what likely support we could expect to receive from the foundations you mentioned?
Councilmember Solorzano, so I certainly think we could come back with more information, a lot more information that could potentially, impact that discussion at that time, to be able to say that I would have full commitments for the entire amount and endowments and all of that sort of stuff in 30 days could be difficult. But I think that just like I just learned what the federal grant amount is today, I haven't even had a chance to have conversations with any of those foundations to find out how they're feeling about that. And so, after I share that information with them, I'll begin getting more information and be able to bring that back to the council, whether that's everything or enough to encourage further discussion. I would think it would be the latter. And I did highlight just one other comment regarding competing with other programs. And we'll say that the funding that we've received and the support from the various foundations have been specifically centered around this interest in this program. So I know that there are definitely other deserving projects on the budget that have been deferred. And I just want to say that this funding would not even, again, we don't have all the funding, but even the funding that we do have would not exist not for this project. And so I just don't want to give the perception that it is taking away from or competing with another project. We still have to show that it can be financially sustainable. This comment's not to address that, but just to say that it's not taking away from another project.
I think my concern is not that it's not taken away from another project, but that we have current projects that also are going to need additional funds, like the pool, like the library. I mean, just the pool as an example, right? I mean, that's something that's going to need to have repairs at some point in the not too distant future. And so we're going to want to go to the community, right, for their support of the resources that we have already. So I know that it's not that, I'm not worried that this would take away money from those other things, but at the same time, I feel like we're going to be going to the community and asking them to support the programming that the city does, and I'd rather invest in a long-standing resource like the pool or like the library than go off for something new where we have nothing that's solid or that we can really hold on to right now.
What I would suggest is that when we look at these foundations, we look specifically for the cause, the place for it. In other words, this would not be something that would go someplace else. It would be an investment specifically for a community center.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting to know if, like, the Santa Barbara Foundation, do they fund community centers in other cities? And if they do, how much a year do they commit to that?
We may not want to be specific to a foundation. There may be other ones out there.
Right, and so, but I guess we don't have unlimited time, right, to get the funding lined up, because I don't think that the seller would wait for.
If it's 30 days, it's 30 days.
Yeah, right.
We have to try. It's the least we can do, and then, that's all we can do. If not, then we'll have an answer. So all I'm asking is just give us some more time. And we'll find out in August whether we want it or not. So, just continue the meeting. I'm not asking to say yes or no, just some more time.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I think it would be interesting to see what new information comes about within the next 30 days. I think in terms of what Councilmember Namar stated is that when it comes to foundations or donors, it's very specific to their cause and what interests them. And so if at the end of those 30 days, we really determine that maybe the Rite Aid building is not the building for this project, there might be something else that comes out of this. And maybe there isn't, but it also could be an opportunity for us to get better at receiving grants moving forward and into the future.
Can we make the date September 1st?
I'll leave it to staff. Depends on the meeting that we have. Will you be comfortable with either meeting?
I mean, I like the idea of 30 days, if whatever meeting is closest to that.
The 26th.
All right.
Let's make it a hard date.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll make a motion. I move to continue this meeting for August 26th and direct staff to work with foundations and other nonprofits and donors for the Rite Aid building.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Brian, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Namura?
Aye.
Councilmember Solorzano?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alarcon?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
And Mayor Clark?
No. All right. Next item on the agenda is legislative update.
Mayor Clark, council members, there's nothing new on the legislative update. It's the same legislative update, or the Cal Cities provided the same legislative update that they provided at the last meeting, so no new information.
Okay. Committee reports or other matters by council members?
I can share that the Harbor Seal Committee is meeting this week on Wednesday, and then the Joint Affordable Housing Committee will be meeting on Thursday, 12 to 1:30.
Okay. Attendance at future meetings?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we'll adjourn at 9:13. Thank you, everybody.